Welcome, everyone. All rise, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Fontanes?
Here.
Councilman Henderson?
Here.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Here.
Councilman Nathan?
Here.
Councilwoman Souza?
Here.
Councilman Stacks?
Here.
Mayor Cohn?
Here. Draft unapproved minutes of the regular meeting of the City Council held May 24th, 2023. Have there been any comments?
I have not received any comments, Mr. Mayor.
Any comments now on the dais? May I have a motion?
I'll make it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda. The motion is as follows. I'd like us to be able to vote on a resolution. Can anyone hear me? Is this on? Okay. To add a resolution to the agenda for action before we get on with the regular business of the city. And the resolution is as follows. Whereas the mayor and council members Johnson, Souza, and Stacks have brought a suit against the Rye City Board of Ethics. And whereas under the city charter and public officers law of New York State, the city has an obligation to indemnify and defend the Board of Ethics and officers of the city. It is now therefore resolved that the Board of Ethics is hereby authorized to retain counsel of its choosing and to enter into a retainer agreement at an initial retainer amount not to exceed $100,000. I'd like us to address this obligation now as the public is all aware of this action. And there's a deadline for the city's Board of Ethics to respond to the suit, and then we can get on with the regular business of the city with this item, this what I think is really an administrative item addressed. So if I could have a second for my motion to amend the minutes.
Second.
Typically, we have discussion before motions, but we are blindsided by the motion. I think the motion is premature. That is, we're waiting to learn about insurance cover. And when we've learned about insurance cover, we can figure out where we go from there. If there are issues with calendaring for us to take care of in the litigation, then we'll take care of those issues as they may arise.
I think we owe it to the Board of Ethics and to the officers of the city to give them the certainty that they are indemnified and can defend themselves appropriately. We're all blindsided by this suit. I'm sorry I received the documents yesterday, learned about it when everyone else did, and I'm bringing the resolution because I think we owe it to our volunteer members of our city's committees to know that they will be defended against litigation. So I don't think there's anything premature. The court doesn't wait for insurance carriers. We shouldn't wait for insurance carriers. It's a complicated issue. They need to know that they can go out and get counsel. The plaintiffs in this action had an opportunity to think about this, to interview counsel, to retain counsel, to put their papers together, and to file their suit. That's fine. Now the defendants need to know that they can do the same, and I don't think waiting for an insurance company is appropriate, and I don't think there's another meeting for another month, and I think there's only 38 days to respond, or 20 days. I'm not sure what the deadline is, but it starts to get very tight. So I think we should just dispense with this so we can get on with the business of the city. There are a lot of people here who want to see us function as a council and address items of great importance to all of them and to all of us in Rye. I understand that this is an important issue to you, but it's also an important issue to the Board of Ethics, and we need to just know that it can go off and be handled.
I agree with Councilman Nathan that any volunteer, and this is a volunteer-run government, should have the comfort of counsel of their choosing, and that we should not delay this vote. We should give them that comfort. It's the basic, it's required by law, and we should uphold that.
I think that the Board of Ethics has known for quite some time that this suit was likely, and I think that the Board of Ethics can sleep easy on our assurance that we'll look after council needs as we get the information to do so. But I'm happy to call for a vote on the resolution.
Yeah, let the record show that in a letter dated May 15th, we contacted the Board of Ethics and we asked them to please have a conversation and to please make things work for all of us, and they refused. So they have been on alert. You all got the letter. You all got the legal notice as well. So don't say that they were blindsided, because that is false.
They can't take action to protect themselves unless we take action. So I would say I would
Understood.
Right.
And we
so
will.
we must. Whenever
And we
it
will.
happens.
At the right time, we will.
Kristen, how long does it take to get sort of feedback from the insurance carrier?
So I put them on notice yesterday and had a conversation this morning. It is not a straightforward issue in the sense that we have an insured versus an insured individual and official capacities versus just an official capacity board. It's at least a couple days, but given it's not as straightforward, Article 78, it might take a couple days longer.
We're not weeks or anything. Do you think we'll get something by end of next week?
Have an argument
I'm
over the
asking
next
a
week.
question, so let me.
would have to have a meeting to pass a resolution to
Kristen, could
protect
you
these
finish just
people.
answering my question, please?
I can't. I would hope by the end of next week, but I don't know how definitive an answer
We'll
will
be happy to call a special meeting when we have the facts that
Can
allow
I
us
ask
to.
a question? Why do we need to hear back from the insurance company? These people have been sued. They're going to need counsel. We're obligated to provide counsel. Why don't we just give them the counsel?
Right.
In typical
Exactly.
fashion, I'm under an obligation to defend and indemnify pending insurance. Not me. I need to provide defense and indemnification, whether it's through me or someone else, pending a determination from a carrier. That's typically how it's done. I don't know how quickly they'll come back with a response.
I called for a vote.
And it strikes me that the carrier is irrelevant. I mean, the carrier could agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. They still need the defense.
I called for a
We have
vote.
an absolute
Mr. Nathan.
obligation.
I called for a vote.
Okay.
If I
On the
just
motion.
may, the motion was to amend the agenda. That is,
Consider this motion, yes.
okay.
And then we could discuss the motion and vote on that.
So I'm going to do a roll now. Councilwoman Fontanes?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
This is to amend the agenda?
Yes. That is
Answers-
the motion that was
Yes,
made.
the answer is yes.
Okay. Councilwoman Johnson?
No.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Souza?
No.
Councilman Stacks?
No.
Mayor Cohen?
No.
So it's odd that we have the four litigants, the plaintiffs who have sued this city, in their capacity as city council members who happen to hold the majority, have now denied a discussion of our obligation to defend the volunteers on our Board of Ethics, a former mayor, a former councilman, and a highly regarded litigator and resident of the city of Rye. Their defense, a defense that they are obligated to, you will not speak while I am speaking, a defense that they are
You're out of
obligated to
order.
receive
You are
under
out
the
of
New York
order.
Public
Your motion
Officers
failed.
Law of New York State. And you are in a conflict of interest.
As are
You
you.
have a conflict of
As
interest.
are you.
I'm not out of order. I
You
don't have
are
a
out
conflict of
order,
interest.
and you have a conflict
You have
of
denied
interest.
the very volunteers of the city. It is an attack on volunteerism.
We are also
It is an
volunteers,
attack
Josh. We are
on
also
volunteerism.
volunteers. And so
Appalling. You should be ashamed. It is such a
You're the
horrible
fellow- you're the
disappointment.
fellow-
pageantry.
You're the fellow who transferred the confidential opinion of the Board of Ethics
That's
to
what
the
you
press.
believe. You believe I transferred it to the press. That's
Are
very
you
interesting.
denying that?
I am denying it.
Good to know.
Good to know.
Interesting.
Well, let's move on.
We'll have a special meeting and take care of it there. Kobe?
Commissioner Copey, if you would.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. As we've discussed in the past, the Fire Department and the Police Department are in the process of adopting new policies regarding operations in both departments. Tonight I bring 7 policies that I put forward and seek approval on for the Fire Department. The first, and they're all self-explanatory, just how the Fire Department would deal with the Public Employee Safety and Health Bureau, also known as PESH. They occasionally will do inspections, as I believe they have done in the city of Rye in the past. Just it designates who would be an officer who would be receiving that. Second, Division of Safety and Health, notification of injury, illness, and death. Just established requirements for when the department is required to make these notifications. Driver's license requirement, the fire department, it is a condition of employment that the firefighters, the career staff maintain a valid New York State driver's license, and with regards to the volunteer corps, that if they in fact intend to operate a vehicle, they must also have a valid license. Policy for reporting for duty, when you can be relieved, when you should notify your supervisor if you're unable to be there. Very standard, generic. Uniform regulations, what to wear, how to wear it, when to wear it. Badges, purpose is to ensure that badges that are made to identify people as City of Rye Fire Department members, how they can be acquired, when they can be transferred. Similar for identification cards to ensure that every member of the department, the volunteers included, have a identification card. Again, very generic and straightforward, but certainly I'm available for questions, Mr. Mayor.
Any questions for the Commissioner?
Commissioner Colby, I have one question on the Public Employee Safety and Health Bureau inspections, Section 9063.
Yes, sir.
And it relates to the last paragraph, and maybe just a clarification. I don't know if you want to clarify the language, but it talks about the department conducting an appropriate internal investigation. That would be after the PESH inspection, is that right?
Yes, sir. If in fact PESH came in and identified a problem, the department would be required to do, or under our direction, would be required to complete an investigation as to what the PESH violation is and what we can do to correct it.
You wouldn't want to be doing that while they're
doing their
inspection.
The purpose is with PESH, the law requires that the PESH inspector has open access to those areas of the department that he would need, so we would do that. If upon leaving he issued a notice of a violation, which would typically happen if it was something very, very serious, a critical violation, he would give it to us then. Otherwise, a report would be forthcoming. When the report was received, if there were violations noted, we would conduct an inspection.
That's what I would assume. Maybe you just might want to clarify that following the PESH inspection, the department will conduct an appropriate internal.
Councilman, I'll take care of that tomorrow morning.
Yeah. Okay.
Right, and I will make that change. Any other questions?
No, thank you very much.
No problem. Everybody have a nice night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we now open a public hearing to adopt a new local law amending Chapter 112 definitions under general provisions to add a definition for holiday and create a uniform use of the word holiday throughout the city code of the City of Rye by also amending telecommunications 185.4 and vehicles and traffic 191.381, 191.42, 191.46. Carolyn, would you like to explain?
Sure. Upon a review of our city code, we noticed some discrepancies between the word holiday. We saw legal holidays, federal holidays, laid out differently in many different areas of the code. So we wanted to make sure that there was a general definition of those of holidays, and so we listed out all of the holidays that the city observes. And then, woven throughout the code, there are some nuances, like with construction, noise, leaf blowers, et cetera, that the council recently reviewed, but everything's just a little bit more firmed up now.
So essentially, we went through the code and kind of conformed all the holidays, so we don't have to figure it out every time we do something.
Exactly.
Okay.
Good catch.
Yeah, this came up and as you said, in the rock blasting and all that kind of stuff. Okay, I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. Do we have
Would-
to, can we close the public hearing?
Would
Or
anyone like to speak on this issue?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make a motion, keep going, to adopt the amendments to adopt the local law amending Chapter 112 with the definitions of holiday, and then throughout the city code by amending telecommunications 185-4 and vehicles and traffic 19138.1, 19142, and 19146.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Fontanes?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson? Yes. Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Souza?
Yes.
Councilman Stacks?
Yes.
Mayor Cohn?
Yes. Okay, so we move to what I think everybody's here for. And what I would ask is that I know there are people with very different views in the room, that we all conduct ourselves respectfully of one another, that we remain silent even if we don't like what's being said, and that we not have outbursts or exclamations that make it hard for people to convey their views. So I understand that the Rec Commission has a representative, and I'd appreciate hearing from him. Rick McCabe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm rising on behalf of all the members of the commission, obviously, and certainly our chairman, Bart DiNardo. We thought it was important. We've had a meeting in between your last two meetings, and we thought it was important just to sort of, since Bart obviously had submitted the letter on behalf of the commission, we thought it was important, given some of the issues that were raised in the previous meeting, that we just refresh and sort of update everyone on how the commission has approached this. I think it's important that everyone understands that we're not singularly focused. The commission is an advisory body to the professional staff of recreation and the city, and want to just give a brief update on sort of where we've come from this and why the recommendation unanimously from the commission is for this synthetic turf field at Nursery. Certainly, it's the biggest need in terms of our fields, and we've got needs. But this is the need that's probably the strongest, and it's certainly the top priority of the commission, given the number of children in the community who play soccer, lacrosse, rugby. The rectangular fields are really at a premium, as we know, and this field in particular has borne the brunt probably more than any other in the city, which we've seen in terms of cancellations of practices and games and other events. So we've sort of come to it from that perspective. The field has usually scheduled 45 hours per week in the spring, 36 to 40 in the fall. A synthetic turf field, going back to the rationale, would give us 50 plus hours of use per week on a field. It would also prevent cancellations like today.
Right.
And would give us some time to recover, which may also include tomorrow.
I'm sorry, 50 plus hours 12 months out of the year, or is that just during the season?
Well, I think it's seasonal in terms of the sports that would play on those fields. You're not seeing a lot of lacrosse and soccer in December and January. It's more, and to be perfectly honest, in the summer, it's not a particularly highly used field either, because it's not a camp location. It's not, it's just simply for youth and high school schedules in the spring and the fall.
Thank you for that. Yep.
The point of neighborhood impact, and all these points that I'd like to bring up, things that we've considered and sort of fed into our recommendation. Neighborhood impact. We know that there would be an impact on the neighborhood that's undeniable, but there's an impact on every field in Rye which is nestled into a neighborhood. There's not one field that we have. We'd like to have more, but there's no more space for us to be able to sort of find new ones. Every single one would impact a neighborhood, and we want that to be taken into consideration. And certainly the wetlands impact is also, there's legal implications and moral implications in terms of the use of a space like this and what we can do there. And we want that to be part of the consideration in this process and the planning process. Storm drainage is certainly an issue throughout the city, but in that neighborhood in particular, that field currently has zero drainage infrastructure. There's nothing. It's soil. So we're talking about adding multiple layers of different materials. The idea would potentially to be have storage tanks under that field that would be able to hold inches and inches of rain that could be controlled in terms of their release, helping, hopefully, not just benefiting the recreation uses, but from a civil standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint. The idea of green space has been brought up, and you should know that everyone in the commission, while our focus is recreation, this is a group of people a group of citizens that are very much focused on green space in the community. If this were an existing preserve that we were recommending be turned into a soccer field, I think that would be a different situation. We're talking about just improving an athletic facility that currently exists. We've talked about alternate locations, all of which we've considered, and none of which seem to be a better opportunity than nursery. Rec Park, if we did that surface, we would lose 2 softball and baseball fields that would need to be replaced, given the popularity of those 2 sports, and they would not fit at nursery. Camp would be impacted, and that's the highest revenue-generating activity for Rye Rec. No one on the commission has any faith in the availability of the thruway property in any reasonable timing or time of day, given that we're talking about 8 and 10-year-olds, that field would likely be used in the prime times of afternoon or weekends for what will be the primary tenant. Sterling seems to be equally problematic in terms of environmental issues, if not more, given that it's nestled squarely in the wetlands, if not sort of adjacent like nursery is. And I think the idea of the Edith Reed lots has been brought up, and I don't think none of us understand how that relates in terms of the county owning that property and the city of Rye having any access to creating a new facility on those fields. From a funding standpoint, a new rectangular field is a top priority for the commission. Certainly, I would say the top priority. Given the citizens group that's willing to help us fund this and make this a reality, it's a unique opportunity. That doesn't mean that we just whitewash things and push them through. But if we have this opportunity and have a transparent process, and that's our ability to fund it, I'll defer to everyone that's on the dais. I don't think there's $3 million anywhere in the budget for us to create a new rectangular field. If this is our opportunity to do that, the commission feels strongly that we should at least go down that road of doing this in a transparent process. Grants have been brought up. Grants are a great idea, but completely hypothetical. And as we've seen with the pickleball courts, we still don't know at this point what we're getting and what we're going to get. Parking and traffic, we're not talking about an increase in events. We're talking about the regular schedule of events that we've had. The last thing I want to say, the commission strongly believes that this should be a transparent process, that there should be, we've done a lot of examination on this in past years, including with previous to some of your tenures on the council, but we believe this should be a transparent process and with an honest exchange of ideas and points of view for people in the community, whether they live in the neighborhood or not. And as what I would say to all the citizens that are here, as the process continues, or on any issues related to Rye Recreation, our third agenda item once a month is for citizens that are willing to be heard, that want to be heard, and that we are always available. And we've met with the 2 different funding groups over a period of 4 years, and any other citizens that would like to come and talk with the commission and find out our points of view and how we would approach these things, we're welcome to do that.
I have a question.
Please.
Has any of the people who oppose the rectangular field that is proposed to be turf, have they been to the commission? Have they voiced their opinions to the commission?
No,
or their
those
concerns?
conversations have happened here.
They haven't gone to you?
No.
You have a...
I don't believe so. If I'm wrong, I'm willing to look at...
We spoke for half hour, 45 minutes before the last meeting.
I'm sorry, I was talking about the monthly meeting. Yes, I've had a conversation with absolutely 100%. We've had a direct conversation, which certainly impacts our thought process, and other members of the commission have as well. I'm just talking about the open time frame that's allowed at every meeting for any citizen.
And you're inviting people now, which is great, because I wasn't here before. So this is the first time I'm hearing about it. They're inviting you to come and speak, and I think that's fabulous.
All the meetings are public meetings, right?
I believe every advisory
So
commission
it's
meeting
not
is
like
public
everybody
in
receives
some way or
their
another.
Right. And it's
not just here.
It's always on the agenda. Public comments is always on the
Exactly.
Nobody gets a paperless post to get here.
I have a question. So I believe we've already spent, was it $140,000 in the soft cost planning for this to be where we are? And I think that the discussions about authorizing another $150,000. Has there been any discussion of asking the funding group to pay $290,000, which is where we'll be, so that if we go down this road and the city decides that they don't want to have a turf field there, that we're not out $290,000 plus because the group doesn't want to pay for our soft costs because we're not going to build a field, and so then we're going to be out the money. My understanding is the only reason we're even considering this is because private money is offered to pay this, but I've seen no agreement as to.
It's probably a question for the funding group.
I would agree. I would say that their willingness to do that. I can't answer that. What I would say is, I think it's a consistent process around the city for there to be studies done on particular projects that maybe the city undertakes.
But it's not. It's a different thing here because it's a private. It's a little bit different here because we have a private group involved. Mm-hmm. And if the city lays out all this money and we end up not building the field, we're going to be out the money.
I understand that. And as a citizen, I completely appreciate that. I would defer that question to the citizens group, and I would say, given what their projected budget for the project would be, I certainly can't answer the question that you're asking. But I think the level of funding that they're talking about is substantial, and I think if the city is willing to come this far and they can take us this far, I think that's a reasonable.
But what if the city goes this far and decides we don't want to do it?
Then I think in a transparent process where all citizens have been heard and we've decided that it's not the right place, then I think it's money well spent. Because I don't think anybody believes on the commission. It's easy for me to say it's some of my money, but not all of my money. But if we can't sort of have the most substantial part of this conversation until there's a full plan in place, and we can talk about the real H&H issues. We can talk about neighborhood issues. We can talk about turf and infill and all those things until this was sort of a preliminary study.
Right.
And this would get us to the point where we could consider spending their money.
Well, yeah, but or the question is who should spend the money to get us to that conversation?
Right.
Right. Them or the city.
50-50.
I think that's the question.
Yeah.
And that's certainly for
It's a
you all to
valid
decide
question,
whether
yeah.
they have any willingness to do
idea.
that. Mr. Nathan.
Thanks. You said you've met with the different funding groups over the years. Are there actual written pledges? Is the money raised? I just haven't seen anything about the money, and we went through this in 2003 and again in 2012 at the Board of Education. In the first instance, the community raised money for the stadium and the high school football field stadium and lighting. In the second instance, there was discussion about raising funds. There was a proposal for a matching grant, and the community did not raise the money. But in the first instance, the pledges were in before the school expended any money on projects and planning. In the second instance, there was a pledge, and it was incumbent on the community to raise the funds and come back and, in essence, show us the money. And then the Board of Ed, which wanted or had expressed interest in redesigning athletic turf over on the high school, middle school campus and those practice fields, would then go forth and take the various steps and never materialized because the money wasn't actually there. Is the money here? Do you know?
I think that's a question for the funding
I think it's
group.
also a question for the funding group. The way they've expressed it to us, they have said that they do have committed funds for not only the initial installation, but a certain period of maintenance over a certain period of time. Not necessarily a reinstallation over 15 years or something, but that there's a potential that they have additional pledges that would get to that point where the city would have even less exposure in terms of day-to-day maintenance. But I would not want to speak in terms of a number or how they've gotten those pledged.
So that, and this is fine. It's just that's not part of what the Rec Commission's analysis is involved. It's not the fiscal side. It's just where's the need? What's the plan? What are the priorities at Rec? Which I understand from
Sure.
what you're saying.
And knowing that the money's not available, at least at this point, in any other way. That if this is the opportunity through a transparent process to get this done, the commission, whose job is not only to counsel but to sort of advocate for recreation for all citizens in the city, it appears to us, given that we think it's a good-natured approach from the first funding group and now the second group, some of which crosses over, that we think that that's certainly a reasonable approach.
Totally get it.
Commission can't guarantee it, but we're very
I'm
confident.
not asking you to guarantee it.
No, we're very confident in the citizens.
I wanted to know if you happen to have done the diligence, and if not, that's fine. I'm not even suggesting it's your responsibility to have done it. It's as you talk about a transparent process. I haven't seen that financial side of this, and I'm just asking, but you don't have to be the one with the answer. I'll ask it to someone else.
The best that the commission can answer is when we've met with the funding group currently.
They told you this.
When they've come to our meeting, they've told us that they have the committed funds, or in other conversations with commission members or whomever else.
Just one other question. Has the commission had any discussions with any of the schools and the school board about whether or not it might make sense to try to use one of their fields, as far as installing artificial turf? It sounds like the whole discussion here is really just focused on rec fields, and perhaps maybe better places to do this might be at some of the school fields.
It's a possibility. I think the school has their own issues in terms of field availability. This with all due respect. The school board and the administration tends to operate on their own land the way that they think is best for the school district. And that may be for different levels of the school district,
Right.
but it's not a consultative process. When the new field was installed at Midland, there was no conversation about what does rec need. It was, we're going to just take this field and we're going to make it, and which is terrific, and they should. But I think and I think we're talking about the upper field at Rye High School, and there's different issues there. And certainly it's an outstanding partnership between Rye Athletics and Rye Rec. But I think
But there hasn't really been a back and forth on this one issue, and is there a better place? Would you be interested in talking about perhaps partnering with us or this funding group to put artificial turf on school property?
I just want to really just remind you, this is the City of Rye Rec Commission.
Yeah, that's
so
why
their
I'm asking whether
jurisdiction is
they've
the
had
City
that.
of Rye. They just don't generally opine on the usage of school space.
No, I'm just asking if they've had conversation.
I'll take my commission hat off for a second and put my citizen hat on. I don't think that anyone in the Rye High School athletic or middle school departments would be opposed to there being a brand new rectangular field with everyday use at Nursery Field.
No, I'm talking about on their property and putting the field on their property.
I'm not aware of where there's any space available. The elementary school fields tend to be too small for what we're talking about in terms of the scale of a full soccer field and things like that. And certainly, obviously, they have their own priorities in terms of what their teams need.
I was going to say thank you for having these questions. We haven't actually had this conversation yet, so thank you.
Of course. Thank you.
Really important. Go.
Bill's just reminding me that back in 03 through 12 at least, there were joint meetings between different groups representing the city and different groups representing the school, and I can't remember at this point how they were comprised at time, but there was a field sharing agreement There were field sharing discussions. There was a lot of collaboration around who had what and how could we best exercise it. I don't know if that's continued, but Bill, it's part and parcel of Bill's point. So there is that channel that, if it hasn't been opened up, can be opened up, and I don't know whether there's an answer there. The other thing it's reminded me of is you mentioned before that the baseball and softball fields couldn't handle a rectangular field. Did you look at a combined field? We did look at that for the upper field at the high school, middle school, and designs that incorporated where there's part of the field is designed to accommodate a portion of the baseball field. There's overlap in, how that works. There are solutions out there. I don't know if you've looked at them and if they didn't work, or if you haven't looked at them, or anyway, I put that out there
that may have been explored in a study in the past. It's not been part of this current conversation.
Not in the current one. Okay.
Because, as I said, there's implications with camp. There's implications with, especially for lacrosse, you'd need safety netting around that field 24/7, which would would be an additional cost. It's a much bigger field and things like that. So, not to say that. The one thing I will say that what the commission has discussed in session is, if we can initiate this partnership with a citizens group and always have it be a transparent process and have it be where everyone agrees this is how we should move forward, is there a next opportunity down the road with this group, another group, to look at Rec Park? We've seen a transformation of Rec Park with city funds, but is there a private public partnership that could eventually get us to a point of Rec Park being a new place to think about?
No, as I said, we had a success. As we all know, we had a very successful private funding public partnership with the schools years ago that led to the stadium there. So the concept of that is a welcome one.
May I ask a question? Do you feel that there are big differences between this process and the public-private partnership that established? I played on that football field a really long time ago, and there was barely grass, no less synthetic turf. But obviously, it's been a massive improvement for players now for almost a generation. Do you find there to be big differences in putting aside wetlands issues? Because those are legal implications that we either can control or not. But do you find any difference in the public-private partnership aspect of this?
Yes.
Okay.
The basic difference is, in the case of the field at the high school, there was no debate about the want, need, desire to have that. But let's assume that there's no debate about that here for a moment.
Sure.
Because that's a separate issue, really. Here's where the process is different. There, we basically saw the money before we acted.
Sure.
There was I may get the gentleman's name wrong. I think it was Steve Gates, but I could. Am I correct? Do you remember?
I don't remember for sure, but
in any event, there was a gentleman who took the lead, and he was absolutely transparent with the pledges, the amounts, the count, basically showed the school when it had the money and when they crossed. And I could have the number wrong, but I think it was $675,000. Different time, different budget.
Sure.
That was the go-ahead number. And when we had that, then all of these discussions happened. Then we did all the analysis and filing the plans with the state and getting approvals and analysis and all of that. So the citizens came forth with the money first, showed us the money, and then we did all of this.
Can I ask a question on that?
That was the big difference in the process.
Was there an upfront investment by the Board of Education in terms of study? It was all from the. Okay.
So on what basis was 675 the go-ahead number? Was there a plan to operate from? Like, how did that number even come up?
That was the estimated cost of a field.
So clearly work had to have gone into that number. Doesn't come out of thin air. Clearly some work had been done. Maybe it was through, the school board or something.
They came to us with the pricing.
Right?
They came to us with the pricing and the analysis. It was more discreet. I mean, it's a stadium. The size, shape, and location was more discreet. Things are simpler. But they came to us and said, this is what can be done. This is what it costs. And we have the money. And we have the pledges. And here it is. And in the second instance, the process was similarly transparent. There was a pledge, a matching pledge, and it was the same process. And in that case, for reasons that really probably irrelevant, the money wasn't raised, and it just didn't happen. But the money was very transparent at every step of the way.
Which I think the commission would agree it should be.
Yeah, I think we need to know that we have that before we spend taxpayer dollars of a significant amount.
Right, additional taxpayer dollars. I just have a question. It may not be something you can answer. It might be a Greg question. Greg? So in terms of transparency, and again, I'm so grateful to have you here to ask you questions directly instead of we're pelting each other with emails and text and things like that. I want to understand how we went from last month, where this was just an agenda item reading potential nursery field project, to something that includes a very detailed resolution and a narrowed set. There is no set of options anymore. There's only an option. Is that something that came from the commission's recommendation, or how did that happen? Because there wasn't a vote. There wasn't a discussion among us as a council. So just explain the process for the public too, because it landed in our inboxes on Sunday. So
the responsibility of the agenda is run by the mayor. And so the agenda matter as it relates to this was proffered by the mayor.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Got it.
Thank you. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Okay, Matthew Pym.
Do I have 3 minutes or more?
3, and then you can sign up and go again.
Okay.
All
right, thanks for having me.
The funding, we want to ask questions of him.
I figured as much. Yeah, I figured
Questions
it.
won't count.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, so just,
Want to stop and start the timing, or?
You're speaking for the funding group.
I'm speaking for myself, but I am part of it, yes.
I'm sorry.
Wait, is
For
public
himself,
comment?
but also part of the funding group.
Yes.
On what?
For those of you that don't know me, I'm Matt Pym. I live at 93 Overlook Place. Thank you all for volunteering and serving our community. I know it's not easy. There's a couple things I want to talk about. One is obviously to let the kids play. There's a lot of noise around that, and the project at nursery. The Let the Kids Play, organization that I am part of, started about 3 or 4 months ago. It's a grassroots organization. It's formed by the parents and citizens of Rye. We've raised $1.6 million in 30 days. 1.6 in 30 days. We've done 3 events.
Raised or pledged?
Pledged. Right? Pledged.
Should I Q&A now or when I'm done? I'm happy to do it, stop and start. It's fine.
Sorry.
Just asking the question. Is it raised or pledged?
Raised, pledged, same thing, no?
Well, do you have the money in the bank, or is people saying they're going to give you the money?
It's a pledge, yeah.
It's a pledge.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The question is who we are. We're your neighbors. Some of us live very close to nursery. I can walk there. We're your coaches. Some of us are doctors. Some of us are nurses. Some of us are child psychologists, healthcare workers. Some of us work on Wall Street. Some of us work on Main Street. But we are here. If you look around the room, there's a very small portion of us, but we are here. I'd like to say something for the record from our group, just to let you know where we stand and how serious we are. If the city produces a final plan that is satisfactory for a high school-sized artificial turf, multi-sport field, with infill other than crumb rubber, high-quality components, attendant accessories, and environmental protections, Let the Kids Play will fund the construction costs, including the initial study, the design, the approval expenses, on a timely basis in an amount not to exceed $3 million. Mental health is real. It's touched all of our lives. The science is very clear about organized sports and just playing outside in general. Very clear. Our kids need this. The campaign against this is anywhere but here. The data says right here, right now. I don't have time for the rest, but I'll send you guys a letter about it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Can you just clarify, you said any kind of fill other than crumb rubber?
Crumb rubber is not good. You don't use crumb rubber.
Not debating it.
Yeah.
Just
I
wanted
can
to make
reread
sure.
the statement if you'd like.
No, I just wanted to make sure I heard correctly. So
Okay.
not crumb rubber.
Yep,
Does it
other
have
than
to
crumb
be
rubber, yep.
Does it have to be a synthetic field, or could it be a hybrid field, or could it be a natural field?
This organization is into a synthetic field that is
Okay.
usable.
And does it have to be a synthetic field, that nursery field?
We don't choose where the field goes. I don't work for the government. I don't work for RYREC. When we got behind the situation, we are in supportive of the people that you guys have hired. We are in support of the data that they published. We are in support of this been going on for 3 years plus. We've been kicking this can down the road. It's done. The work is done. We've done it. You guys have done it. You have had your experts do it. We believe it. We trust the people that you've hired. We trust RYREC. We support RYREC. They have chose Nursery Field. We support them. We are behind it. It makes sense. It's not for me. I'm not playing on this thing. They are.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
These are pledges. Are there documents that the
Yes.
city
So
can?
I'm happy to sit down with you and show you the documents. We've spent about $5,000 on infrastructure out of our personal pockets to organize all the stuff behind the scenes, where you can go on the website, pledge your money. You have to have your, all your information there, your address, you live here. It's not fake. These are the people that are here. There's 600 almost signatures. There's over 150 people that have donated. We literally just got started. I don't have to sell the story. They live it every day. This is not a new topic at all. This is not, I have to do the work. It is dire. I'm happy to sit down with you and show you the data. I have it in my pocket. Let me talk to them.
We don't have to do it here, but I would love to do that.
It's very organized. If you know these people and spend time with these people, they're serious humans. They're coaches. They live it. Everyone you see at Starbucks, a lot of people are afraid to come here. They don't want to be associated with this. Kind of gets a little crazy. So I'm happy to take the punches in the face. I do it for the kids. I really don't do it for any other reason.
I welcome the opportunity to either directly or through a city staffer do the diligence to see, because I've been down this path twice. Once it was extremely successful, and you have the high school field, and once it didn't pan out, and that's okay. Everyone, I believe, in both situations was operating with the best of intentions and in good faith. I just think that there's a big ask, and we just need to make sure that all those pieces are in place, and we can do it, and it doesn't have to be here in this forum. It should just be done so that there's confidence in what you've put together. I'm not denying the intentions or that your neighbors. My neighbor is sitting right there, and he's on your board or on your committee. My son grew up playing sports here, and we were grateful for that opportunity. I appreciate the need and the concern. I just want to understand the underpinnings here, because it's a big ask.
Of us or of you?
Well, it's a big risk to the taxpayers.
The taxpayers, and I'm a taxpayer as well, right? I'm risking $10 to make 110, right? You're putting up 10% to get 110 back, right? So you're going to get the field plus your 10%.
If it's there.
Is that a bet you would take?
If it's there.
All day, right?
We can't bet.
We're here. It's here.
We can't bet.
It's not the hard part. The hard part is getting you guys to work together and work for them today and keep this thing going. And let's not do it another decade from now and wait for another city council and wait for another group of people. Okay? It's time. It's time. Please.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think it excuse me, may be useful just to restate where we are. That is, we have been through a process starting in 2019 and interrupted by COVID in the first instance, and then Ida, of contemplating whether we might first work with one funding group that wished to provide a turf field, and again, the recommendation from REC was at Nursery Field, and now a second funding group or reconstituted funding group after the uncertainties of the COVID period. And what we're looking at tonight is, if we go to a resolution on it, and we might go to a resolution in this direction or perhaps in another, but if we go to a resolution on it, we would be looking to go to something that's called 60% design. That is a pre-bid design that allows us all to look at the implications of what might be built. At 60%, the design is still subject to change. The 60% design would be subject to, and the process of developing it would be accompanied by the development of all the environmental and regulatory reports, LWRPs, SWPPs, CAFs, and so on through the alphabet soup. And that would come back to the council with the advisory opinion of the Planning Commission, and the council would again look at the whole thing and decide if it wanted to take it forward. So tonight is not a go, no-go. Tonight is intended to be the possibility of going to a design that will enable many of the technical questions that have been asked in the past to be answered with greater certainty and on the basis of an actual design.
Mr. Mayor, if we go forward, and I, from what I've been reading in all the materials, there are a lot of permitting issues in wetlands. And
sorry, can you speak on the microphone?
Sure. There are issues about whether or not this project can be done. There are permitting issues, wetlands. We've heard a lot of different things, historical designations, whatever. Would it not be, if we're sure that this group has the funding to do this, would it not be perhaps a reasonable ask that this group fund all the soft costs up to the 290, because we might not be able to do this. And if we can't do this, then the taxpayer is out the money. It's my understanding that the only reason we're looking at this is because a group has come forward with private money saying to do this. I'd prefer, that the city not take all the risk of going down and spending all this money if at the end of the day the field can't be built.
Yeah, I have to agree with Bill. I'm a little worried. I mean, I love the outdoors. People see me walk around and do stuff around town all the time. This is an important thing that people have been asking for since I've been here. However, I also have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers, and I have a hard time wrapping my head around. We're putting up the $300,000-ish up front, and I can't figure that piece out. I'm looking for more information as to why that makes taxpayer sense.
I think it's what Matt said. This is a widespread, and as you just said, Lori, it's been an issue since I've been here, right? This is a very loud community need. It is,
absolutely.
Right?
100%.
So we also have the responsibility to try to address that need.
Right.
Now,
well, can we share the
nope,
risk,
yep.
though, or something?
So here's the thing. There are a couple ways this pans out. We go forward with a plan, and it's unsatisfactory for a number of reasons. We don't advance it. Yeah, we are taking that risk, and I think I am always very fiscally conscious up here.
Mm-hmm.
That's a risk I'm actually willing
I
to
saw you
take
with
to
the
address
algorithms. I remember.
to address
Yep.
what is a widespread community need. I'm willing to risk that taxpayer money because if it pans out, the community gets something it so desperately needs. Now, if it goes that way, and so I guess if I were the funding group and I said, yeah, their plan, and Matt, correct me if I'm misquoting you here, we'll reimburse you the $290 if you move this plan forward.
You said that.
He did say that, right?
Well, we haven't seen it in writing. That's all I'm saying.
It is in writing. It's on the letter you got 2 weeks ago. 100% you have that in writing. So what it is, and it's what he just said. So I think we can look for ways to delay
I guess,
and to
financial
obfuscate
packet.
here. What I'm
Just the
trying
whole-
to say
right.
is
Yeah, that's all.
that, yes, I take my fiscal responsibility, my fiduciary responsibility very seriously.
Yeah.
Am I going to gamble $300 to get $3 million for the mental health of our children all day long? All day long, okay? Now, if we go there and this plan doesn't work out because we choose not to do it, why should they be out $300,000?
I don't think Bill said
Because
choose not to do it. He was saying there might be an impediment we can't see.
It is, and so that's the risk that we're taking.
So
but if we can get this to work,
we need all the
Lori,
financials.
and address the need of this community, that is money well spent.
Right. And but there's a false dichotomy here that it's only this choice or people suffer, and I think there may be more choices.
This is the recommendation that the RYREC has made.
Yeah,
there are no other fields that really comply with their specifications. And what we want to do is make sure that environmentally it covers. This is what the resolution says. We're going through all the environmental steps to see that this fits where we want it to fit. All of Rye is in the wetlands. Our 2 fire stations, these buildings, City Hall,
70%.
the library, the Y, 1,800 of our structures are on the floodplain. This is what we have to work with. And we work with these, and I sit on the Planning Commission, and we work with these all the time.
Carolina, we'd like to hear the public, so we will have a council discussion, but let's go to Gavin Molinelli.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time. My name's Gavin Molinelli. I live at 27 Island Drive in Rye. We have 4 children, 3 boys, aged 9, 7, and 5, and a 6-month-old daughter. I'm here today on behalf of my family and, most importantly, my kids and all the kids at Rye to express support in moving forward with the construction of a new turf field. In my spare time, I coach lacrosse, baseball, and soccer. I have seen firsthand the detrimental effect that the lack of field usage has on both the kids and the parents of this town. We all know the unfortunate reality of the situation. Rye is desperately lacking in field availability. We have 1 turf field at the high school, which primarily serves the high school students. The kids, on the other hand, are forced to play on fields that are closed most of the year, and when they are open, a combination of the wear and tear, along with even the slightest rain, makes many of them unusable for days at a time. So what does that mean? Canceled practices, less field time and exercise, traveling 20 to 30 minutes to other towns to use their turf fields. It means more driving time for parents, less time to spend with the rest of their family because if practice is an hour long, you can't even drive back home because if you did, you'd have to turn around again. It means having to tell parents last minute that fields are unusable and scrambling to find other fields to play on last minute or how to get your kid a ride. It means if you have multiple kids like we do, your child missing practice because you just can't get there because each field your kid plays on is a different town too far away. Whether that means I'm going to Stepinac, Purchase, Brunswick, Rye Country Day, and every other field that we're forced to go to because Rye does not have field usage. It means less time playing with friends, less time exercising, less time spending as a family. But it doesn't have to be like that. The parents of this town want better. In just a few weeks, as Matt Pym had just said, Let the Kids Play has raised $1.6 million from parents across this town that has said enough is enough. We have a problem and let's fix it. Parents across this town that care about their kids, that have seen this for years, are asking this city council to approve a new turf field. As city council, your job is to look out for the best interests, the long-term interests of this town. It's hard for me to imagine anything better than providing more field space for all the kids in our town to play sports and exercise, be able to spend more time with our families because of less driving, and have our kids spend less time in front of their screens. Putting another turf field in Rye should be a priority for the city council, just like it is for every other town. It's a priority for the residents of Rye. It's a priority for Let the Kids Play. It's a priority for everyone that lives here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue Druin.
Sue Druin, 57 Moorhead. The federal government regulates who has the ability to significantly alter a wetland. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is in charge of enforcing wetlands regulations as delineated by Section 404 of the Clean Water Act. I would like to know if they have been contacted about this project.
I believe they were contacted about this, and they have not taken jurisdiction. Kristen, is that correct?
You are correct, yes.
I understand the City of Rye is in the process of applying for others and recently received a $10 million grant from a state agency. And I quote from the city's own press release, "The New York State Water Quality Improvement Program grant program funds projects that directly improve water quality or aquatic habitat or protect a drinking water source." I listen, you guys know this, to the city's updates on flood mitigation and understand that we have even retained a lobbyist to assist in Rye's relationship building with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because we need them to help fund our enormous flooding problems in Rye. I am wondering if they know about this proposed project because you will need a permit from the Corps. Will they, Purchase College or Rye Brook, look askance at our pleas for massive water retention projects north of the city when they find out that Rye proposes to destroy a wetland in a flood zone? On the New York State DEC resource mapper, there are 3 separate nationally identified types of wetland on the nursery field property at 421 Milton. And there is apparent infringement on this property of, quote, rare plants and animals. How then is Nursery Field Park still even on the table when I recall Councilmember Stacks objecting to placement of a water retention berm at SUNY Purchase when it was noted that those things existed on the proposed berm site? The Residential Floodplain and Wetland Preservation chapter of the City of Rye's own law thoughtfully encourages residents who have a portion of their acreage, which is, quote, a wetland and or in an area of special flood hazard, to, quote, develop these lots without locating buildings in the area of special flood hazard, nor in any other way increasing flooding elsewhere in the City of Rye. So I would like to know how the city justifies filling in the wetlands to build this structure while knowing of the negative consequences for property owners in the surrounding area. We heard from Chelsea Fields at the last council meeting, and I counted numerous other letters whose properties already flood. I would like to know, how will the construction of this stadium in a floodplain make anything better for those residents? I would again bring your attention to Laura Brett's letter, acting chair of the Planning Commission, longtime resident.
Sue, your time is up.
4 more words, and former member of the City Council. Thank you.
Just in quick response, nobody is filling in a wetland. Kristen, could you speak to the wetland boundaries?
Well, certainly whether it's a federal, state, or locally regulated wetland, it all depends on whether or what criteria a wetland meets. Oftentimes, a wetland biologist goes out and flags the boundaries of a wetland, and in this case, there is no federal wetland, there is no state-regulated wetland. Any wetland or wetland buffer would be regulated by the city's own local code, chapter, I think it's 195.
But the field plan is not in the wetland.
The field
is
is not
the wetland buffer.
Sorry, it is not in the wetland. The playing field is not in the wetland.
In the buffer, right? Not
Part of it is
It's in the buffer.
It touches the buffer.
Right.
Okay.
And when was the last time they did a delineation? Was that a part of the 2020 process? But it has been done.
Has
The GCA
Right,
conducted
the 2019-2020 thing. Right, thank you.
And then with respect to flood impact, we did have a hydrologist report, and if people have looked at the videos from 2020, we had a session with the hydrologist, and the conclusion was that the field would have no impact on flooding. That is, it is on the upper edge of the floodplain, and by the time a flood would reach it, the floodplain has so expanded out over the entire marsh that any displacement that the field would create would have no impact. I think they said a conservative 0.3 of 1%.
That is true.
Allison Relier.
Allison Relier, 12 Halstead Place. Thank you all for coming. It's good to see so many people here. We're all wearing green. We're all on the same team, and we all care about kids. We all care about mental health. We have so much in common, those of us who care about this field. Some of the things Matt Pym said, we're all coaches, teachers, doctors. We work on Wall Street, we work on Main Street. We're your neighbors. We all are looking out for the best interest in Rye. We know you all are as well. I think what divides us is that some of us know that artificial turf at nursery is a bad idea, and some of us don't know that artificial turf at nursery is a bad idea. And not because of intentions or goals, but because of process and location. I don't know if everyone here does trust the experts who were hired. I'm not sure. Some of you were here when they were hired. Some of you were not here when they were hired. There are other experts beyond the one individual who was called in and his team who then did the hydraulics and other analysis. But this process wasn't done with transparency from the beginning, from summer of 2019. And we're all hoping for a transparent process to get the best recreational space for the young people in this community, to protect the green spaces that we have, to improve upon the facilities that we have, and to maximize our recreation space for everyone. But we don't want to do that at the cost to some of our neighbors, to green space, to wetlands, to the Long Island Sound, or to any other critical members of our community living and not living. Okay? We just don't want to do that. I don't think any of us want to do that. And we're asking for due diligence. That's all that we were asking for. And respectfully, Mayor, you reached out to one of my colleagues after the last meeting and mentioned how tall the north end of the field would be raised. And I'm asking if you could state publicly what that number was. How many feet would that north end be raised?
Trying to remember, I think what I read was a maximum of 2.5 feet, but possibly less.
Okay. The colleague I spoke to remembers you saying that the north end of the field would be raised 13 feet.
No.
No,
So maybe that's
13
not right?
feet is the elevation.
That's the elevation at the field.
The elevation of the
Above
field.
sea level.
Above sea level.
The elevation above sea level will be 13
Yes.
feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some confusion in some terms and where the process is. I would love for you to tell me where was the process not transparent, because I wasn't here in 2019. So if you can pinpoint like what was done under the table in an incorrect
for
manner.
example, the plan that I know was so concerning to some of you because you hadn't seen it before when it was brought up last time was submitted in February of 2020, which was prior to the public workshops that were supposed to flesh out some of the discussions that we were having.
That wasn't
that wasn't our plan.
Can I just be very specific because this is very upsetting?
This wasn't our plan.
No, it's not a plan.
Okay, it's a
It is
proposed.
No,
it's
it's not. Can I finish? It is a survey of the space, and we have to submit that before we go about this process to the state to see, hey, are there any ancient burial grounds or anything under there that we would be disturbing before we even start? And you know what? I'm still answering here. Okay. And so you can confirm that there are no ancient burial grounds or anything under that site, correct?
That's correct. SHPO came back and gave us a clear finding.
So
to speak.
SHPO is the State Historical Preservation Office,
Yes.
and the purpose was to draw a maximum zone of disturbance.
No, I understand that it
that's
wasn't
not
a final
plan.
I understand it was a proposed.
It was nothing. It was a survey of the property to make sure that there is nothing.
It's a submission at the state level.
To just assess it. And so what happened last time is, and I think Mr. Adler, you owned up to this, somebody went and took that survey, right, that has to be sent to make sure anywhere near here, is there anything we could be disturbing? Not a plan, a survey. Okay. We sent that off. Nope, there's no disturbance, there's nothing here. Somebody else.
I get that, yeah.
Mr. Adler crossed off 29 trees and then circulated that as saying 29 trees are going to be taken down. That is disinformation. Let's be very, very careful.
No, it wasn't.
Very
careful.
He
He wasn't pretending it was his construction plan to build. I understand. I understand exactly what happened in the process. I guess what I was pointing out is that steps were taken while you all were the lead agent of SECRA that were part of the SECRA process, and those steps were taken prior to those big public meetings where we were all coming in good faith to discuss different types of outcomes, and those
but that's
steps.
Just something that's not a secret. That's something we have to do. Yeah. Like just to submit it to get the feedback. That was to get more information to inform
it. If there were
it.
burial grounds there, we couldn't have moved forward with anything.
I understand the negative declaration. I understand all of the steps. I guess what I'm saying is it seemed that things were further along with synthetic turf than when we were all working and thinking that we were coming together as a community and discussing many different options.
If we
things
did
had actually gone
space,
further along in that space and in that vein than some of us would have expected. And that submission, which was the recommendation of a consultant from the DEC, was to see, he said, this seems as though it has progressed well into the secret process. Can you reach out and see what might have been submitted? I understand they were not final construction plans, and I never said that they were final construction plans. Never did I say that, nor did anyone else. We just want you all to know where they came from, when they came, and you asked for some moments where things weren't transparent. That's one, and if I could give another one, I would appreciate it, since it was a question of me and some of the time was taken. Another time in which things were not very transparent, in the initial process, we asked, just as a checks and balance, that Stantec, who was the original engineer, not be used for the H&H study because flooding and hydraulics at that location are so incredibly important. And we voiced our opinion. Other council members voiced their opinions and said, could you please use a different firm, just as a way to make sure we're getting the best work that we can get for this city, because it's a critical location. We know that. Those of us who spend a lot of time there know that that is a wetland buffer, a floodplain. We know all of it. And we were just saying, do the best work you can and hire someone other than Stantec. And that was denied. And Stantec was used. And the individual from Stantec leading the project is on the Synthetic Turf Council. He served as the secretary of the Synthetic Turf Council. It is not good government. It's not good leadership. It's not due diligence. And that's all that we were asking for. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question for the city manager. I don't know if you have this. Stantec is a global firm, right? Does the same person, Mr. Nardone, who used to work at Stantec, conduct the hydrology analysis, or are there two separate entities?
No, Stantec Engineering is an international engineering firm. They have a variety of divisions. I mean, in terms of who exactly did the hydrology report, it wasn't David Nardone. They have engineers specifically doing hydrology.
I imagine the same turf guy doesn't do hydrology. They're two different fields.
The hydrology has nothing to do with the design of the field. It's to make a determination about the impact of the flooding in the floodplain and in the wetland buffer.
I have a different technical question, very, very quick for Kristen. In terms of the SHPO, which was raised, do we have to resubmit this now because of the same sort of issue of staleness? Like, do we have to go through the whole? You're asking us to reconfirm the lead agency. Does that flow, this new secret process, come from that, or not?
Given the fact that either there are historical burial grounds or cultural significant artifacts, that doesn't change. So I would suggest that we would not need to resubmit to SHPO. Unlike the seeker process and the other changing elements of the environment, that review could become stale because of the multi-factor, the multiple issues that go on, the changing laws. But as far as the SHPO goes, I don't believe we would have to resubmit.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just make one point, please?
Yes, but
yeah, it won't be long. Don't worry. There's been a lot of back and forth about this plan that was submitted that had the trees on it and the X's for the trees. And I don't think anyone was trying to fool or provide disinformation. I just think it was a misunderstanding. And I just think we ought to be careful. Everybody's here in good faith to talk about this. I don't like, unless someone was purposely trying to fraudulently, commit fraud on a document or something. I don't think that was the case. I think it was just a misunderstanding.
I'll send it to you.
David Thomas.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is David Thomas. I'm president and founder of the Friends of the African American Cemetery here in Rye. My residence is in Portchester, in all honesty. But I've been a guest in your community for a long time, and as neighbors, and I know the field that you're talking about. And I would ask you, I would beg you all to be very, very diligent in ensuring that the historical significance of the field be fully examined before anything is done to it. I would hate to find out that your children were playing on a burial ground. And I would hate to, and we talk about mental health, I don't think that would do them any good. And I make this comment after finding out this weekend that we all have been to New York City. Chambers Street, between Chambers Street and Wall Street, was a burial ground for African Americans and indigenous people, which we both had here in the town of Rye since the 1600s. In that area of Chambers Street, where I worked for many years and walked through, there were 15,000 burials. They only found one name. So, if you can be sure, to the greatest degree of certainty that you can ever imagine, please do so. And if that surety is reached, then put the field there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mark Hayes.
Hello, I am Mark Hayes of 68 Almoyd Avenue. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. And I want to thank everyone for the hard work, and I also really appreciate the transparency from the City Commission tonight. I have 2 children who are active in Rye sports, so I've been directly impacted by the field situation. And in general, I'm very supportive of every opportunity we have to get our children outside, getting physical fitness, as well as improving their mental health. That said, I am against installing a synthetic turf at Nursery Field, given that I feel it's not a viable option. I encourage the city to engage with an independent third-party consultant to evaluate all options across the city fields and engage with the school district for potential there. I've read through many of the materials that were posted on the city website, and I found 3 main issues that stood out. First, there was an independent study done in 2011 by Woodard and Curran that basically stated that Nursery Field is the worst option for a synthetic turf field. RYREC was the highest priority, followed by Dispro, and then I'll quote, Nursery Field would be the last priority as far as recommending the use of synthetic turf due to its location in a floodplain, potential for settlement due to the presence of unsuitable sub-base materials, and considering the incorporation of the NYS DEC grant scope of work requirements. Considering that Nursery Field lies within the 100-year floodplain and there's historical evidence of significant wetlands on site, synthetic turf is not an ideal option for the site. There is an increased risk of damaging the turf system due to potential flooding and potential settlement. Based on the information above, only Nursery Field site will require a floodplain permit. In addition, as per FEMA regulations, the design for Nursery Field must demonstrate zero net fill across the site. Second point, reading the proposal and documents provided by Stantec, specifically the hydraulic analysis memorandum, they added, quote, the fill associated with a proposed field is approximately 2,600 cubic yards. For context, that's about 260 dump trucks, full-size dump truck loads of fill. Per the Woodard and Curran report, FEMA regulations dictate zero net fill at the site. Therefore, I don't see how Stantec's proposal meets the FEMA regulations. And third is the issue of flooding. Basically, the hydraulic analysis memorandum says there will be no active convey of flow of water off of Nursery Field. I think during Hurricane Ida, we all witnessed a river of water flowing off of Nursery Field across Milton Avenue. So I think that hydraulic analysis is proven false.
Stormwater versus floodwater. And there is a stormwater issue at Nursery Field right now. It's hard pan. It absorbs water at 0.1 inch of rain an hour. And it's collecting all the water coming down the slopes surrounding it and routing it mostly towards the wetland, but wherever. So what happened in Ida was stormwater coming down. It was not floodwater coming up.
Yeah, and I agree. So I think any plan we need to do needs to take into account that stormwater.
Understood.
All right, thank you.
So here, we took them out.
Chris Meyer.
Chris Meyer, 362 Rye Beach Avenue. According to Rye City Charter, the steps taken by the Mayor, Josh Kong, and council members Johnson, Stacks, and Souza are in direct violation with Code of Ethics, Chapter 15.3, representation of private interest before city agencies.
This is about Nursery Field. If you'd like to address...
No elected official.
Sir, if you would like to address another topic, there is a residents may be heard session, and you are welcome to that. But we are talking about
I don't
Nursery
believe we
Field
can have
now.
this conversation. I don't believe we're actually ability to conduct business currently.
Please take your seat.
You wrote Nursery Field on here.
No.
He has 3 minutes.
But you
No.
But you'll come back.
You are
Fill out
he is
another
out,
form.
out
wait,
of
wait, wait,
order.
wait. Do you want to fill out another? This is not a. You just this. You don't. You wrote Nursery Field on this form. If you want to talk about something else, you can fill out another form.
He says he's speaking about Nursery Field. Let him finish his remarks. He gets 3 minutes like everyone
I don't
else.
believe we can have this because I don't believe this is we can have conduct usual
Please
business.
take your seat and come back at residents may be heard.
Yeah. Do you want to update this with what you want to talk about?
No, that's the wrong sheet.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
Riley Pym.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Riley Pym, and I'm in 6th grade. And my main sport is lacrosse. I play lacrosse 4 times a week, but all those times is more than 10 to 40 minutes away, when it can only be 2 minutes away. I live near Nursery Fields, but I can never practice there because of how bad the grass is there, and it is closed 8 out of the 12 months of the year, so we can't use it. It would be so much more convenient to have the turf, if it had to be turf field right next to my house for practice and games and just working and playing with my friends. So that's why I want Nursery Field to be turf.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Paul Benowitz.
Before we click, I would love to address a comment that you made, but it would eat into my time, although you covered it slightly, and that was one of the recent storms, I think it was Ida, where, there's a misconception that the flooding down in my reach, Ellsworth Street, right by the field, is back up from the sound, and a lot of previous people said nothing can be done because it's back up from the sound. It goes across the marsh, and by the time it reaches Milton Road and the others, it has dissipated. But, that storm was totally overland. It was torrential downpour. It came from Elmwood. It came from other places. It went down the field, across Milton, across the cemetery, all the way down Mayfield, all the way down Ellsworth, which are on much lower elevations. Elmwood's at 45. The field is at 10. And I would defy anybody to say that that kind of a storm was a one-off. And if that's the case, then certainly this field plays an enormous part in drainage. My time is up now. I'm answering your question. All of you have, and anybody who's run for council, run for any office having anything to do with Rye, up through federal, has committed themselves to flood control in Rye. It's on your posters, on everything else. And, this is the time to do it. The least I would ask, which is what I was saying last time, is that Rye imposes on every private applicant the requirement that they do hydrology and ascertain that no more water is leaving that property than existed pre-construction. I would assume that Rye is going to do the same thing and go through that kind of rigmarole with outside consultants.
Yes.
And Councilman Henderson was talking last time about optics. Not to do that would be really poor optics. Asking our neighbors to do this and to control flooding. The Federated Conservationists and the Save the Sound people already have letters in the file. These kinds of things, through the other commissions, should not be filtered through the Recreation Commission. they should really come to you, at least through the Planning Commission, not something filtered through. The Recreation Commission has done wonderful things throughout the years, but like every other commission and committee in Rye, they're single-focused. So this has to come through you. Where I come from is flooding. Yet we have all sorts of addresses here, but none of you have had 5 feet of water many times in the basement. So that's kind of where I come from. And any time I see anything that endangers it, again, this was surface water runoff, and we're going to see it again. I would love to know, since Councilperson Sousa said that this is the best location, what was rejected? It is true that 12 years ago, Nursery Field was vetted here and was rejected as not a very good solution. You maybe want to look it up.
Thank you.
We have one piece of good news for you, though, sir. We do require stormwater retention on all new construction. That is
okay.
Right.
And that's in here too,
Yeah.
Paul. So what we're looking at was
Yes.
0.1. Currently, it's the same porosity as clay right now, right? 0.1 inches of water being retained and absorbed into that field per hour. When you look at the plans for like a synthetic system and the water capture, you're talking about over 2 inches an hour that can be stored. So
Okay.
absolutely, that would be part of it. The point would be to make it better and retain more water than what is just sitting there now and actually making the field unplayable. So I agree with you and would insist upon it as well.
I would trust the people that Ryan sends it out to. That the applicant is required to submit along with their proposal.
100%.
And then that goes out. It's gone to several people. And they vet this very carefully. I would really trust them. They're not rubber stampers. They come back with brutal comments for the applicant. So those are the kind of people I would love to see.
Will do.
Okay.
Thank you. Andrew Lang.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Lang, and I live at 4 Fieldstone Road. I've been a resident in Rye for almost 12 years. I have 5 children in the school district. My wife, Caitlin, and I love this town, and we feel fortunate to live in such an amazing community. Our children love this community too, but we can do better for them. I'm here to voice my support to bring more usable outdoor field space to town, and specifically a turf field at the nursery location that Rye Rec has chosen. Other towns have made the choice to build more turf fields for their kids. Rye is behind. Similar-sized towns or even smaller-sized towns have between 2 and 7 turf fields. Rye has 1. And further, this lone turf field is primarily the use of our high school students. We need more usable fields for youth sports in town. Our elementary school children should have more play spaces to get together with friends, running outside, staying away from screens, and being indoors. By now, we all know the mental health benefits of outdoor play and exercise. The facts are, our grass fields in town are not cutting it. They cannot handle the current usage. They're often closed for days after heavy rain. Further, these fields are actually closed more days of the year than they are open. Simply not fair for our kids. Building a turf field in Rye will allow our children to go out and enjoy playing with friends when we get those nice days in February, March, and even into April when a lot of these grass fields are closed. Building a turf field will help limit the amount of driving our Rye families must do in order to get to practice and play home games in Purchase or Mamaroneck. Now, I do understand that the opposition does not want a turf field in their own neighborhood, but simply it is unacceptable for a small group of people to earmark a community asset at Nursery Field for themselves because they prefer it to be an unused meadow for 7 to 8 months of the year. Thank you.
Just one comment. It's a lot of what we're hearing is turf field or die, sort of. It's got to be a turf field. How much exploration have we done to understand how much we could better renovate the grass fields?
No, a great deal.
And I understand that they're not going to have as much playable time as a turf field, but I just think that if we were paying for this ourselves, I think we'd be a lot more thinking about where the compromise position here is. And if money could be spent to make our grass fields a lot better, especially in flood-sensitive areas, it might not get you all the way to where a turf field would be, but it might be
council
a good
discussion after the public speaks? Can
Well,
we?
well, we can.
Let the public speak.
I'm happy to let the public speak, but I thought I'd bring that up because I think it's an important point.
There will be council discussion, and you can bring up all your important points. Laforgue Laurence.
LaForge?
Hi, good evening, esteemed council members, esteemed mayor. Thank you for your time and for taking this issue seriously. I want to congratulate the kids for showing up. I'm wearing green too. I have kids. I happen to not be in favor of turf field, but I really congratulate you for actually coming and being part of the civic discourse. It's an opportunity for learning. So I'm expressing myself as a concerned Rye resident. I live on 1 Ormond Place. I am the parents of 2 sports-loving children, and we have lived in Rye for 6 years. We love the community, and we love its unique historical character and its many green space. We wish we were not forced as a community to choose between improving our sports capacity and preserving our environment. Like many parents, we believe in the value of sports. We want all the kids to play. We want all the kids to play in a healthy environment. So we'd like you to please consider the fact that Nursery Field is not the right place to build a turf field. It's a place that has created a lot of division amongst our community. We have petitions on both sides of very equal size. So we clearly have a very, very strong division here. This is not a unifying project. We urge you to consider an alternative and take better care of the current natural field instead. We would like you to look for a nature-based solution to this infrastructure problem. This is a bipartisan issue, and at the highest level, this country is showing us the way. At the local level, we have to look into those solutions as well. So that's first. Second, I would like to raise again the issue that has been raised before around the fiscal part of this project. I applaud the parents for wanting to raise money for the initial build, but I think that any project of this kind, given the kinds of potential for litigation and the potential for agency to come and stop us or even ask us to remove the field down the line, which has happened in other communities, as I've learned through this process of trying to educate myself, would require this group to actually put an endowment of about 3 times the amount that they're supposedly pledging. So I'd like you to consider that as well, because otherwise taxpayers are going to be left on the hook to pay for this. Again, I'm not here to be for a team or against. We're all for more time for the kids to play. But let's just take a step back. Let's not take heated and too fast, not considered enough position on this. It's too important for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Douglas Carey.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager, Corporation Council, City Clerk, residents. It's really clear that we need to work together to create a win-win solution. Today there were heavy rains, and I've heard that the field was closed. But I go to that field almost every day. And it does get used 12 months a year. When I served with other people in this room on the Recreation Commission for 15 years, including the time when we put this bond proposal up, Nursery Field is part of a park. And part of that park is a passive recreation park where people can engage in birding and walking their dog in the appropriate places. And at 6:15 this evening, before I came here, I went to Nursery Field. There was a soccer coach instructing 2 players. There was someone walking their dog. And I saw 6 egrets in the northwestern portion of the park. The northwest portion of the field was in the floodplain and was designated that way. I don't know if that map has changed. But we need to figure out a win-win, not a win-lose solution. We all have to put our minds together. And I want to emphasize that, yes, we all need outlets for recreation. And nothing is more precious than our children. And there are many ways of doing that. And there are many ways of being a leader in this Seacoast community of Seacoast communities. And we are facing many, many, many new climate situations, emergencies, and we need to be thinking ahead. And I just want to quote from our city website on the Rye Sustainability Plan for Water and Land Use. And I quote, "Conserve Rye's most precious asset, its natural open spaces, through enforcement and enhancement of existing laws, by adopting sustainable landscaping practices, and by reducing environmental pollution." So I urge you on the dais, I urge all of us here and at home to work together so that we can measure our costs and benefits not just in financial terms or not just in short-term costs or short-term benefits, but the long-term, including non-financial costs and benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. John Leonard.
Thanks very much. I'm John Leonard, 1 Appomattox Avenue. Few thoughts on this. I sent a note earlier. Basic conclusion is if the main purpose is to improve athletic facilities for people in Rye, generally look no further than the Woodard and Kernan report from a decade ago that was referred to earlier. More specifically on Nursery Field, I think there's some aspects that we've got to be careful about here, which is particular to be sure that we have full disclosure up front as to what all the hidden agendas are that back up this proposal. One in particular is that Nursery Field is kind of unique in Rye, and it's not generally publicly available for casual use the way I can take a granddaughter over to kick a ball in the schoolyard at the high school or walk into Rye Rec and use that. It's normally fenced off, and most of the rest of the property is either bird haven, all power to that, or parking lot. Secondly, I have heard that there are proposals not only to improve use of the fields for Rye teams practicing, but also to host tournaments for teams from outside Rye. It can be a very profitable business for the hosts. If that is intended, we need to know it up front. Third point, traffic and parking. If I go from 35 hours of use to 50 hours of use, I think the number of cars is going to go from 35 to 50, and particularly if practice end and practice start are closely overlapping. This is not a good traffic location. Rye Rec is far better from that. For Rye Rec, I've got parking space. I can park on the street. I can't park on the streets in this area. Finally, on the water issue, the old way of dealing with water is to stick a pipe under Milton Road and dump it into the Sound. Rye is unique in that it has direct access to the Sound to take storm water. We should not be storing water in already saturated, low-lying areas like the one around Nursery Field, or for that matter, the one around our house at Appowamus and Milton. A direct pipe as part of the city's sewer system to get the water into the Sound as quickly as possible makes a lot more sense than retention in lots of parts of Rye. We've begun to address this in Hicks Park and Boulder Road. It needs to be done elsewhere. Thank you very much and appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan Adler.
Dan Adler, 62 Elmwood Avenue. We can't be having a conversation about Nursery Field at this moment because individuals are in conflict of Ethics Chapter 15.3. We can't be talking about Nursery Field because of that chapter which states representation of private interests before city agencies and courts. No elected official or employee of the city shall represent private interests before any department, office, or agency of the city, nor represent private interests in any action or proceeding against the interests of the city or in any litigation to which the city is a party. We can't be talking about Nursery Field because by suing the city for, among other things, their attorney fees and costs associated with their lawsuit, the individuals mentioned before are in violation of Code Ethics 15.2. We can't be talking about Nursery Field because no elected official, officer, or employee of the city shall have any interest, financial or otherwise, direct or indirect, or engage in any business or transaction or professional activity or
Dan,
incur any obligation because of Nursery Field, any nature which is in conflict with might reasonably tend to conflict.
Would you like to talk about Nursery Field?
Because of Nursery Field, we cannot talk
Dan,
about it
you
anymore.
can come back to the podium.
And because of the actions that have been
Residents may be
taken,
heard.
they do not have the ability to talk about Nursery Field and make unbiased decisions, and therefore cannot conduct business as usual. This lawsuit is active and pending. Business as usual cannot be conducted right now until that is over, and therefore we cannot be talking about Nursery Field.
That's not unhinged or anything.
Eleanor Pym.
Eleanor, pull that. Yeah, good.
Hi, my name is Eleanor Pym. I am in 3rd grade, and my favorite sport is lacrosse. I usually travel far away for it, but if we had turf on Nursery Field, I would only have to drive 2 minutes away. Thank you.
Suzanne Clary.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Clary, 14 Dogwood Lane, and I'm here to talk about the alphabet soup and possibly educate people about all those letters that we've been hearing about, like Seeker, like EFC, like New York DEC, like SHPO. I actually spoke, and this is something anybody can do or look up, to the case officer for this project at New York State SHPO, who received the submission from the city. His name is Bradley Russell. The project has a number, 20PR01385. And New York SHPO was told this was a Nursery Field improvement project. Improvement, not replacement. The location, footprint of, and I quote, existing full-size soccer field located on a city-owned property at 421 Milton Road. The Nursery Field lies within a New York State Museum area and New York State OPRHP archaeological buffer zone. Both mean that there are aspects of the property that could make it sensitive for archaeological sites, specifically indigenous artifacts and shell middens. And if you want to know what a shell midden is, it's the artifacts of First Peoples that include seashells, the tools they use to open the seashells, anything like that that is precious and irreplaceable once it is disturbed by construction. Bradley told me he looks forward to the revised APE plans from the city, as he assumes that there may be some, given that they received a plan that was based on the original seeker. And just to illustrate this, look at my phone, everybody. You see this orange part? Let's say that's nursery field. The plan that was submitted is the exterior, all right? The state looked at a plan for just doing work here, not for here. So when you do that $290,000 investment, you may be going into this other area that may have indigenous artifacts. Okay, so that's that. Next, I called New York DEC. Again, anybody can call New York DEC. And I spoke to someone, how am I doing? 38 seconds. Brian Drum, who said that especially after Isaias and Hurricane Ida, he fully expected, given the age of the plan, that someone would be delineating the floodplain regions. Because again, the EFC parcel has limits. And once you go beyond the EFC limits into the floodplain, you're messing around with a lot of stuff. He recommended making sure that the wetland delineations are depicted on the site plans. Specifically, quote, footprint of the new artificial turf extends beyond the existing grass field. And last but not least, he closed with, Suzanne, your concerns about flooding are legitimate for the entire neighborhood and all of the coastline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions about alphabet soup? Okay.
Thank you.
Riley Driscoll and Avni Patel.
My name is Riley Driscoll.
And my name is Avni Patel. We are two sixth graders from Rye.
We both play on the same club team and Rye youth team for soccer. I'm 11 years old. I live at 136 Appomattox Ave. I love the town of Rye. I played for the Rye youth soccer travel team for 3 years and cannot tell you how many times my practices were canceled or a game was canceled because of the weather. For me, I look forward to my practices. I look forward to these breaks from homework. I look forward to being with my friends and exercising. When it rains, everyone knows the fields will be canceled. Too wet, too muddy to practice, and the fields will be close to us. If we had turf fields, we could play rain or shine or snow. Yes, even snow. In fact, last spring, we had an unexpected late snow day. On a day my team had practice. Initially, I figured practice would be canceled because the snow would make the fields too wet and would ruin the grass for the spring season. But we were one of the lucky teams who were assigned to play on the turf at the Rye High School. We were able to play in the snow, and it was such a fun practice. I was so happy to be able to play with my friends. Here's a photo of my teammates and me after that practice. I felt bad that other teams who were assigned to play on grass fields that day and didn't have the fun we had with our teammates. This felt unfair to me and made me realize how important it is to have more turf fields in this town so all kids can play rain, shine, or even snow.
Our community is committed to creating opportunities to let youth reach their full potential in many different fields. However, our town does not have enough actual fields to support the athletic community and all of our athletes giving access to field space. Rain or shine, our youth should consistently be able to practice and play their sports. As an athlete, this issue has impacted me numerous times. Many practices of mine have been canceled due to rain or even snow. This time adds up and steals massive amounts of time away from teams, which impacts the development of players and the record of their team, which also, when a team has a lower record, it doesn't make players very motivated to keep playing the sport, and it can sometimes lead to players dropping out of their sports. It also takes away from a time that gives students a break and escape from the stress of school. It gives us an opportunity to socialize and form bonds with our friends that can only be shaped through sports and physical activity. With turf fields, we can create stronger bonds for all of our youth and a better environment for coaches, for players, coaches, and everyone.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Pat. Jen Driscoll.
Thank you for your time and for listening to all of us this evening. My name's Jen Driscoll. I'm a mother to 3 children. I live at 136 Appowamus Ave. I'm a mental health counselor. I'm a volunteer RYU soccer coach. I'm also a former professional soccer player, and I was once the captain of the women's soccer team at Stanford University. And I was also once a child athlete, and I'd like to speak to that experience tonight. Some of my fondest memories came from riding my bike to my hometown fields, where I played pickup sports with friends. We played freely, we played creatively, no parents, no coaches, just our time, our space. This was a great joy for me, and I want to give that same joy to the kids in this town, the kids in this room, the kids that are in the waiting room that are up late tonight. I love this town, its people, its schools, but the fields are disappointing. They're not meeting the needs of our children. I wish they were more inviting. What do I mean by inviting? I wish Rec fields didn't have signs posted, field closed, majority of the year. I wish Nursery Field wasn't barricaded off with construction fencing with a sign that says, field closed, please stay off. This is what our kids see more often than not. I wish Rec, its baseball field, didn't post a sign, please stay off, game tonight, on a Friday at 9 a.m. during the summer when my youngest son with his glove is ready to play catch with his mom. That was this week. I get it. These measures are put in place to preserve the integrity of the Rye fields. But the problem is these efforts to barricade the fields aren't working given the demands of this town. Families are moving in, and there's a great enthusiasm around youth sports. The fields become unusable too quickly and too often. As a former child athlete, I look at every day these fields are closed. I view it as a missed opportunity. A missed opportunity for children to connect with friends free of devices, free of social media. A missed opportunity to escape from the academic and social pressures that often weigh on young people today. I look at it as a missed opportunity for children to problem solve with peers and develop conflict resolution skills. I view it as a missed opportunity to increase mental and physical wellness. A missed opportunity to laugh, to run, to skip, to kick or throw a ball with friends, or maybe even for a young boy to throw a ball with his mom. We need to do better for our children in this community. We need to carve out a consistent, reliable playing space for them to develop as people, as athletes, and future leaders for this community and beyond. I urge the City Council to make fields more usable year-round by turfing field and posting a sign, please come play. Take
Chris Watson.
Start by saying those are very tough acts to follow. Nice work, guys. Hi, everyone. Chris Watson, thank you for your time. I live on One Beery Court. I've lived in town for almost 10 years, 3 young kids. Soccer and lacrosse coach and board member, so I'm intimately familiar with the very dire field situation we have here. Just this spring, I've had opposing soccer coaches come into our fields complaining about their poor condition to the officials, asking if we could play. 3rd grade lacrosse players from neighboring towns innocently asking their coaches if the dirt field the game was on is actually a field. Our kids starting their weekly spring practices well after their games have begun because we don't have open fields to practice on, and way too many practices and games getting canceled. I'm very familiar with our field shortages and constraints. I've had to send too many emails canceling lacrosse practice, because the fields are closed. Sometimes it's a day after it rained and the sun is shining. It is terrible knowing that email means 100 kids will miss a night to be running around smiling with their friends. Coaching gives a lens into how kids feel and react. I've seen the pure joy of our kids playing together and the deep sadness when they're told their practices are canceled yet again. They want to play, and it's so valuable to their mental health. It is easy to make up catchy sound bites and misinformation to scare people about turf fields or disrupt and delay a well-intentioned project. We've heard a lot of those, but those comments are often not grounded in fact and science, and too often are just that they don't want Nursery Field being more open for our kids. I urge you to prioritize our kids' mental health over the vocal opposition from people who don't want a better and more consistently open field. Just regarding the comment about the field being accessible to the public in the months when it is not officially open, that is not correct. As Jen said, there's a huge orange construction fence blocking it off. It's closed more often than it's open. Regarding the comment about the nursery parking lot getting more crowded, the field isn't being expanded, so the amount of cars using it at any time would not change. But yes, over the course of the year, there would be a lot more cars picking up happy kids if the field was open, and more kids riding bikes to play. So I don't think any of us have turf fields in our backyard, and we haven't seen firsthand how these fields handle heavy rainfall. Rather than listening to the scare tactics, I would just ask the council to put our kids first and to engage with experts, impartial experts who actually have experience with turf fields and how they perform after heavy rains. I think we should all defer to those experts. And we've spoken to and read testimonials from impartial experts who manage turf field facilities at major universities and friends familiar with similar projects in other towns. These experts will tell you that modern turf fields are highly effective storm systems which can absorb massive amounts of rainfall without releasing that water to the surrounding area right away. They will tell you that the river of water that flows off a grass field would not happen with a turf field because the storm system would absorb it and slowly release it. So, thank you very much.
Ellen Weininger.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Weininger. I'm Director of Educational Outreach at Grassroots Environmental Education, a national science-based environmental health nonprofit with offices in White Plains and Port Washington, Long Island. Grassroots provides public education regarding health risks of environmental exposures and evidence-based solution tools. We serve local and state governments, healthcare providers, school systems, and organizations nationwide. We work with leading medical experts and research institutions and also serve on the county's Climate Crisis Task Force and the Climate Smart Communities Advisory Board. We've submitted more extensive comments and we'll include them here this evening, but we urge you to reject any proposal for installation of artificial turf fields. The only sustainable and healthy choice is to install a good drainage system topped with clean soil and planted with natural grass. This recommendation is consistent with the position of medical experts, scientists, and environmental policy experts, including the Mount Sinai School of Medicine. RYE has been an environmental leader enacting the plastic bag ban and creating the Healthy Yards program to reduce and eliminate the use of toxic pesticides. Informed decision-making centered on independent evidence-based resources have brought these critically important initiatives forward. We urge the Council to follow the independent science. Installing plastic grass is the farthest thing from sustainable, environmentally friendly, climate-friendly, healthy, or safe. The plastic blades are known to contain PFAS chemicals, substances known as forever chemicals, which persist in the environment and are linked to certain cancers and damage to the reproductive and immune systems. The artificial turf field contains approximately 40,000 pounds of plastic carpet and 400,000 pounds of infill. The entire life cycle has adverse health, environmental, and climate impacts. they are made from petrochemicals and expose children to a toxic soup of hazardous chemicals, including flame retardants, styrene, and PFAS. The chemicals in the plastic grass and infill can leach and migrate into sensitive water supplies. These fields degrade, creating enormous amounts of microplastic pollution, which can be found in our air, water, and soil, and actually have been found in human blood, lungs, breast milk, and placenta. When the fields wear out every 8 to 10 years, they get ripped up and replaced with more plastic and toxic components. All that plastic carpeting and infill ends up in landfills or an incinerator, in some cases stored on site. To appreciate your consideration that the City of Boston has banned artificial turf fields and that ban bills have been introduced in several states, including New York. Thank you so much for the opportunity to make these comments and for your due diligence.
Allison Rellier.
Hi, Allison Rellier, 12 Halstead Place. I know I was already here, so I'm going to keep this brief. I just wanted to read a resolution from the City of Rye from 2015 that was passed 6-0 by a bipartisan City Council. It was to join the New York State Climate Smart Community Pledge, and it's comprised of the following 10 elements. Pledge to be a climate smart community. Set goals, inventory emissions, plan for climate action. Number 3, decrease community energy use. Number 4, increase community use of renewable energy. Number 5, realize benefits of recycling and other climate-smart solid waste management practices. Number 6, reduce greenhouse gas emissions through climate-smart land use tools. Number 7, enhance community resilience and prepare for the effects of climate change. Number 8, support development of a green innovation economy. Number 9, inform and inspire the public. Number 10, commit to an evolving process of climate action. I noticed in reading this resolution that this project does not align with this pledge that we took in 2015. And it concerns me. Climate change is just one thing we're talking about here tonight. It's one of the many, many, many concerns before, not related to the fiscal concerns or many of the other ones that we've been discussing. But it's a real concern, and it's actually a real concern for a lot of our children in the community. And I think it's really short-sighted and just not the whole picture to say that there's one thing that's going to solve kids' mental health, and that is this artificial turf field at Nursery Field. That's very short-sighted. And in the words of someone I spoke to on the Rye Rec Commission, when I talked about this narrative about children's mental health, again, like Doug Carey said, we want to all work together for a solution. We all care about this. No one owns kids' mental health. We know that. That's what someone said to me. So I just think we need to be clear about what we're fighting for here. We're fighting for the future of our whole community. And we want to do it the best way possible. Not fit a square peg into a round hole. That's just not what we're about. That's not who we are as Rye. Let's do better.
Sue Druin.
Okay. I would like to know if every member of the council has seen the financials demonstrating that this group has raised any funds. If there are really funds in a bank somewhere, the citizens, the public, deserve to see that, because ultimately we will be on the hook. This group just formed 2 months ago. Do they even have a bank account? Should we even be having this conversation? Will this group be responsible for the maintenance? Is there a legal agreement to that? Will they be covering damages when it floods? Will they be covering the staff that is required to rush down to the field when it floods to cover it with an enormous tarp like the school district does? The school district staff drops everything and runs down to the field to cover it with an expensive tarp. How will that work on a publicly owned field? The recent celebrated tree project, Spring for Rye, had money in the bank before the trees were purchased. And finally, on a personal note, my son loves climbing. He's always been a climber, a tree climber. He loves bouldering and rock climbing. We take him to New Rochelle to climb at the Rock Club. But even if there were thousands of kids who were in desperate need of a climbing facility, I still wouldn't ask the city to build a climbing wall in a wetland. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who's going to want to speak on this project? We're down to the last couple of speakers.
Yeah, we have a bunch that haven't spoken yet.
You're right here, Aaron. You're
yeah,
next.
I have a couple left, but are there others who need to sign in?
Yes.
Oh, please sign in. Aaron, please come to the podium.
Thank you guys for your time and your service. My name is Erin Pym. I live at 93 Overlook Place. I'm also a yoga teacher locally. I believe in the mind-body connection and the mental health benefits of moving your body. I sent this letter last week to Councilman Henderson and the rest of the council, and I'm just going to read the letter. My husband and I have lived in Rye for almost 10 years. We have 3 children, a boy 14 and 2 girls 12 and 9, all who attend Rye City schools and are active in the community, neighborhood, and Rye youth sports. We moved to Rye for its schools, beautiful coastline, and community. We have enjoyed living in Rye, but to our surprise and dismay, as our kids have aged and developed, the lack of usable fields has caused a tremendous inconvenience and stress to my family over the years. The cancellations of games, the changing of fields, the lack of reliability of our fields to be open and up to snuff is an embarrassment. I have a sister in New Canaan who has a plethora of turf fields and often jokingly reminds me when I complain about our lack of fields, be careful what you wish for, Erin. No game is ever canceled. That would actually be a blessing here in Rye. The health benefits of getting outside and playing with friends, as well as being part of a team, are real. I can tell you as a mom of preteens, guess what happens when games get canceled? A season delayed or an orange fence, as this one has been described already, is up. The kids go home and go on their electronics. Yes, they do. I'll tell you, every day on the news there are school shootings, social media stats about how much it contributes to anxiety, depression, and suicides. Our kids have already suffered and lost 2 years of their life in the pandemic. How could we as a town allow fields and beaches, by the way, to be closed and locked to our citizens? We live on Overlook Place, right up the road from Nursery Field, and the amount of times we drive by or walk to Nursery Fields and this orange fence is up is astonishing. The amount of time and money we spend shuttling our children to fields outside Rye is also astonishing. In addition, many of us don't have large properties for pickup football and soccer and rely on open spaces to send our kids to play and meet up with friends. This is very difficult when the fields are closed and off limits to preserve their already dire conditions. This should be an important issue, and it keeps getting pushed to the wayside. I think the community support with the signatures and monetarily towards the Let the Kids Play organization speaks volumes to how large of a backing of support this issue has. Every town around us has put kids first, and their kids have fields they need for the healthy and vibrant childhood they deserve. It's time Rye does too. If you and your fellow council members support and care about kids' physical and mental health and getting kids outside to play with their friends and neighbors and kids running around and laughing year-round, then I hope you will support Fields for Our Kids. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all your hard work. God bless you, because this is a thankless job.
Paul Lojuez, did I say it right?
No.
So tell us.
No one does. Paul Ledgway. I live over at 7 Hickory. 4 daughters that are growing up in Rye currently. And I don't know a lot about the science of what a lot of people are talking about today, but I'll just give you maybe a couple of personal anecdotes that maybe leave an impression on you in some way. I've had the benefit of coaching 20-plus seasons between my 4 girls going through the intramural program. I've had the pleasure and honor of coaching several of them travel with Caitlin Colvin, with Eileen Brown, with Jen Driscoll. These ladies know soccer better than I do. My role, typically, I grabbed this as I was coming out of my car. This is a stick. Why did I bring a stick? Let me explain. I brought this because this is what I use to clean out the girls' cleats. This part of the stick is good for the cleats that have very wide gaps in between. This part here, is good for the tight ones. Okay? That's basically my role as a coach. We deal with this a lot on our fields. They're not good fields. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when we have other teams come to this town that's what we're playing on. Right? It's just not. We live in Rye, right? And that's really something that it really bothers me in many ways. So that is one thing that I just think we should not have to deal with. The second anecdote, I guess I would say, is what is our brand, right, as a town? Right? When I moved to this town, one of the things that drew me to it was I knew 10 people that lived here. I liked them all, which I thought was a pretty good representation, probably pretty good sign that the people of this town are good people. So I moved here, and I was talking to these people. They were saying, hey, come to Rye. Come move to Rye. You're going to love it. We're all about the kids. We're all about the families, right? That's the brand. That's the brand that drew me to this town, right? It's the same brand that I kind of tell other people that I know who are looking to move to a place somewhere up in Westchester. I say, come to Rye, right? It's all about the family. It's all about the kids. People used to throw out, you got to see what the fields look like 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Everybody comes out, right? Just an amazing experience in the town. That's the Rye brand, right? And part of that is we put the kids first, okay? We put the kids first, and you here, we all have an opportunity to do something that really shows that we put the kids first, right? That we maintain that brand. That when other communities think of what does Rye stand for, we don't stand for preserving artifacts that might be 30 feet below the surface of the ground. We stand for putting the kids first, so I would ask you to please do that. As we think about this issue, it's something that can leave a very long-lasting impression on this town for the benefit of the community, not just now, but generations to come. So thanks for your time.
Nicole Holler.
Hello, my name is Nicole Holler, and I live at 409 Milton Road. I wasn't planning on speaking at all. I had to every time I heard about everything here. So 12 years I've been a homeowner. I purchased the home 12 years ago. I have 3 kids in Rye. They're 17, 15, and 12. My house is the second direct target to Nursery Field. We're on the west side of the field. We receive all of the drainage from Nursery Field, not just during storms, but heavy rainfall as well. 12 years ago, we just moved in and it was raining, and my elderly neighbor walked over to the stream adjacent to the cemetery. I later came to understand his concern. That stream of water comes from the brook, continues underground towards Nursery Field and in the back of my home. There is some underground water system that is going underground under our homes that we don't understand. We were immediately hit with Irene. We were frantically pumping the water out. The water pressure broke through the garage door, and 3.5 feet of water came rushing in. We experienced Sandy. Henri and Ida in this home as well. Henri was the most interesting of all the storms because it came from the back. None of the homes across the street on Milton Road that were closer to the brook were affected. It did not come from the front. It all came from the back. And that it entered our home from Nursery Field. So over 12 years, things have progressively become much worse. It's indescribable. Every time it rains, it just feels like there is nowhere for the rain to go. My muscles get tense and my heart hurts. I feel that I worry for Rye, all of Rye, and where it will go. I'm also a pediatric occupational therapist for the school system, so I care heavily for children. I've observed children lacking in sensory experiences. Tactile input of natural dirt and grass is essential to healthy living, healthy development. I think we're overstructuring our children's surroundings, and that maybe natural really truly is always better. And that's all I can say. 8 more seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. Caitlin Colvin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for your time tonight. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Caitlin Colvin, 67 Dearborn Avenue. I've been a resident of Rye for about 12 years and love this town. 3 kids, all sporty. We love being outside. We're outside as much as we can. You've heard a lot of data tonight. You've had a lot of facts and figures thrown at you. I'd like to give one specific anecdote. I'm a Rye Youth soccer coach, volunteer, one of the most fun things I do. I had the unfortunate position of turning a group of boys away from the Rye High School field this past March. You may remember we had a really awesome week. It was like 80 degrees. Rye Youth Soccer was able to secure some time on that Rye High School turf. That's hard to do with the Rye High School getting priority, as they really should. But on that particular day, we had about 100 9-year-olds, boys and girls, all on the turf field. Why? Because there weren't any other fields open. And it was 80 degrees. So there were a group of boys, all with their lacrosse sticks. They made the right choice that day. They wanted to go outside and play with their friends and have a catch, completely unorganized. You heard people talk about pickup games tonight. You heard people talk about the benefits of outdoor play. Well, I had to be the one that went to those boys and said, I am so sorry, but we've rented this field, and you can't play on it right now. Now, that's after them seeing 3 other fields in town that said, you cannot play on this field. So those boys made the right decision to not be on screens on that beautiful March day, and I had to be the one to say, I'm so sorry, you can't play here. That's not okay. We have to do better. The time is now. And we have the opportunity and the funds to do it. And it's super exciting, and it should be exciting for our town. That's all I have to say. Thank you. Thanks for
Chris Cunningham.
Hi, everybody. Hi, guys. Chris Cunningham, 19 Hill Street, 2 boys, 12 and 10. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, partially because I don't have my glasses and can't see, and I didn't prepare anything, but, I was just listening and just felt like I had compelled to say something. So the voices that matter most in this room, who are the future, are being muffled tonight, and I really can't believe my ears. Wasn't planning on speaking, as I mentioned, but something had to be said. Here are the things I've heard. Cemeteries that may or may not be there. Old artifacts and terms that most of us have never heard of. Individuals like Dan who want to focus on civil lawsuits not related to the topic at hand. The gentleman who simply tried to steal the microphone, again, not on the subject of let the kids play. Examples of iPhones and potential sizes of fields that aren't even in motion. Health risks regarding to turf, while the best universities in the world use turf. Flooding, well, we know turf can take on more water versus creating runoff. The opposition is focused on their own self-interest, Hail Marys, and topics that may or may not be real. They are distractions to you all and historically have seemed to have worked. For example, asking if we have a bank account tonight. They are not listening. They don't get it. This is way bigger. It's not about them, their dog walks, or as Andrew said earlier, enjoying their own personal meadow. Our group is about kids, the hundreds of kids that want to spend more time outside. I don't believe this council will deny the kids this time around, and we'll see it through.
So council discussion. Bill, you had a question.
Well, it seems like we've had this discussion that's about turf fields or die, simply. And then I'm just raised the question about, I think if there was no private funding group and we were talking about investing the city's money in our RYREC infrastructure, I think in hearing all the sort of back and forth, I think we would explore, we'd be maybe more open to a compromise position, and I think some of the information I've seen is that the current field at Nursery Field was not well constructed, and it is possible that we could put a natural grass field there that could better be have better conditions and would also be better from a flooding perspective than what we have now. And so I'm just, wondering, we should be talking about that. I still think that I've not heard that we've had a robust discussion with the school board about potentials for other places to put turf fields. There's been a lot of discussion about why Nursery Field is such a bad place. To me, I just would feel more comfortable if we kind of broaden this discussion, and maybe some of it is that we're not spending enough money to maintain our fields, and that's certainly a discussion I'd be willing to have as well. And I'm not saying let's talk about everything so we do nothing. I mean, I get there's a lot of people here that are kind of frustrated with, well, if we don't do this, we're down the road and it'll be another 5 years before something can happen. I get that. Mm-hmm. That's a real concern. It just seems to me that at least from my perspective, I'd like to maybe explore some of these things and have more of a discussion about that. It just seems to me that we're kind of in this discussion about it's got to be a turf field and it's got to be a Nursery Field or we can do nothing, and I don't think that's the case.
Bill, can I ask? I do. I have it right here, but I just have a question because I don't want to rehash something you brought. Were you able to watch the February 27th meeting?
I watched both meetings.
Okay, so then you'll know in that that was expressly addressed, and it was also reiterated to us in our last meeting. 4 different things we looked at, right? Rehabbing the current field, right, at the state, at status quo, rehabbing the current field, a hybrid field, and a synthetic turf field.
Right.
The problem, and this is the problem at the high school, which is why they also chose turf there, is the amount of usage. So if you look if this was a decision tree, if I was at work trying to figure out, okay, where do I go with this? I would start with, okay, how much usage does this require? At minimum 36 hours, more on the heavier end, 45, 50 hours a week.
Right.
The only option of those 4 considerations that would sustain that level of play is turf. Anything over 30 hours of play, turf is the only decision tree you get to. So I understand.
But rehabbing the field would create more
No, it would not. No.
Than we have now.
No, because the level of play ameliorates it. So the most, I'll reread it, just for the record.
Explain to us, it's already on, it's on the.
It's right here. I'll read it to you. So
I
to
sat through the whole thing.
maintain ideal conditions, right, which is what you need to play to be safe and to maintain it. For native soil grass, 10 to 15 hours a week. For sand-based, so redoing the whole infrastructure there, leveling it, whatever, 15 to 25 hours a week. Hybrid, 20 to 30. Synthetic turf, 50 plus hours. So the only option that makes sense, and I think it's probably why the funding group is saying turf as well, is why invest in something that we already know our level of use cannot support? And Bill, if any of these options supported the level of usage that we require for our fields, I'd be for it. The problem is if I'm being like a rational person absorbing the facts in front of me, I realize in that decision tree that we put all 4 options on the table, and that was the body of work that we employed for the last 4 years. 4 years this has been a topic. 4 years. There's nothing rushed about this. We're not even at a plan. We're still just talking about an idea, right? So what I would love to see is, based on this data, these facts, this analysis, very, very thorough analysis, a hydraulic study that the high school didn't even employ for a field that is in the flood plain. We are
floodway.
In the floodway, yeah, right? We're undertaking a lot of analysis here, and I think there's more to come. So what I would like to see us do is get to a point that we have a real plan to talk about, where we're not guessing on infill, we're not scaring each other with trees that may or may not come down, and the level of, part of what I'm very concerned about flooding too. These are stormwater systems. They're collecting 2 is a conservative estimate, number of inches. So I would say that you're going to get more drainage from the field, less stormwater runoff from nursery fields.
Question of other locations, though.
But this is the work that has been done. So
but it's been done at Rye Rec, at City of Rye locations. We haven't broadened the conversation.
But we don't control the school.
We don't control them,
The fields at the elementary schools do not meet the size. Didn't you tell us the fields in the Osborne and Midland and Milton do not meet the size, the requirement, the required size for play?
I think what we talked about was the alternate sites that have been discussed in the last meeting, which were potentially down at Edith Reed on those lots, or the Thruway property, or others. There's not been an examination with the school. As I said before, diplomatically, Rye Recreation has a great relationship with the school board. It tends to be a one-way relationship in terms of the school deciding what they want to do with their property, and then talking to user groups and things like that about how it gets used. It's hard to say off the cuff whether Milton or Midland or Osborne would support a field like this. Midland obviously had space to do a small version of this in that side field along Midland Avenue, but it's impossible to say that there's lots of alternative sites. And certainly some that have been thrown out as ideas don't seem to be feasible at all. Thruway, Sterling. Sterling seems like it's a more problematic issue in terms of wetlands and soil remediation and things like that.
Right. We're just having this conversation now. That's all we're saying.
No, we're not. We've been having it for 4 years.
You
Lori.
guys were.
No, I know, but then it's.
I'm just saying. So we're just.
No, and I get it.
That's why. That's
and
why.
I get it. I'm just saying.
Not trying to be confrontational.
No, and I understand that you're trying to learn, but what I want us to do is not slow down an effort that has been crawling along for 4 years. To get everybody's got to do their homework. You can feel comfortable or not feel comfortable, but I'm not comfortable with continuing to slow walk something that is a very, very big community need. We owe it to this community to make a decision as to whether or not there's a there there.
Right. So besides, apart from the absolutely valid concerns of the sports community, and apart from the problem with a process that I think I've touched on a little bit, because like Bill is a passionate person about public golf and others are passionate about trees, as I think I'm garbling your quote, I am passionate about process. And I was in your position, right, as in an advisory capacity in a commission. And it is true that you're focused, and as I was focused on CCAC, on those specific issues. But now I'm wearing a different hat. And I've only been on this dais, I can't believe now, 6 months.
Feels longer, right?
It feels like 6 years. My main problem here, to get to yes, my main problem here is the money. Right? It's transparency part is bad enough. I really still don't feel like I have the backup. I don't want just a PowerPoint. I want every document that I need.
It's all available,
And
Lori.
please, let me finish. I haven't seen it. But in terms, and that's not a dig at you, Greg. I'm just saying, the financial piece of this, we were elected to protect the taxpayer too. It seems to me really obvious. You cannot walk into a bank and say, give me a mortgage on a house, and trust me, I'll have the money. You have to have backup. And the fact that in this thing that was dumped on us on Sunday, there was no financial understanding of where this money. There's no documents. There just aren't any, right? On that basis alone, I feel like I need at least till next meeting. I want to see this. We need to see. All of us need to see this. Nobody would ever do this in your own life. You wouldn't expect to. And this is millions of dollars for an effectively permanent solution, which may be the best solution. I just can't say that tonight.
I appreciate that, and it's a consideration for the council in terms of moving forward, and it's certainly a conversation between the citizens group and the council and city staff in terms of any kind of verification. I think that the council the commission would sort of step back from that process.
Yes, I think, in my opinion.
We are not asked to put millions of dollars. That's not what I'm reading right here.
Go ahead.
Has the city staff done, or what information has the city staff done concerning the pledges? Has it gotten concerning the pledges and the where this current funder is in its process and verification, its organization, its 501c3 status, all of that? Has that all been done yet, or has anyone sat down and done that?
No, we've not been a part of any of those conversations at this point. I'm more than happy to do diligence if directed by the council, if that's where you want to go. But at this point, there has been that.
So, look, I don't want to in any way discourage the community from raising money and I don't want to. I want to make a statement first.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
I don't want to discourage the efforts of the community to develop a public-private partnership. You, sir, did say that you'd be happy to sit down and walk us through all of this. I think that's really important. I think having that experience between now and the next meeting would be really helpful for our staff to do it. That's part of the transparency here.
What do you guys need?
It doesn't work that way.
IRS
It does not work that way.
determination letter. I'd like to see the pledges. I don't need the names, but I don't know. We'd have to have a discussion.
We have to have a.
I just asked you guys all got this letter a couple weeks ago, right? Did you guys reach out and?
When I was saying earlier about
I did actually. I did
pushing
email.
and delaying.
I have emails. I asked people to
we're all
tell me
here.
who are
the people can read. What do you guys need? We have names and numbers.
I'd like to see the 1023.
You want to see? You want to think everyone's lying to you?
No.
And you need to see, or we're just going to keep pushing this down the road.
It's trust.
That's the strat. I get it.
Sir,
but let's not hide behind it.
So you asked what we want to see.
I'm telling you who we are. We just told you who we are. We're all here. The addresses and names are in my phone. They're right here. It's in part of the whole process.
Sir,
So if you don't believe in us, okay, if that's what you're going to say. You don't believe what we're saying tonight, and you want to kick this down the road again. To all the children that just came up here and said, please do something, have the faith in us for getting up here and doing what we were asked to do and raising this money and doing what the town should have done. We're going to do it on our own and believe in us. That's all we're asking tonight is to vote on this and believe in what you heard and take a leap of faith and risk 10% to get back 110 and understand where you live in Rye, and you don't think that we're going to have the money for this.
Well,
from what you heard tonight, it's actually insulting to me.
Legal contracts do not work that way.
Everybody who's spoken tonight, trust us. We will be there. I promise you. I am not joking. Do not do what I can feel is happening here. Whatever's happening on the corners, you guys can do what you want. The rest of you who know me and know these people who have voted for you, who trust in your judgment, please remember that. Trust in our judgment. We will be there
Matt, before you leave the podium.
I have it right here. I have it here. This is not on a piece of paper or a pencil. It's a whole system has to go in.
Before you leave the podium, you offered a statement earlier in the evening. Would you be willing to put that statement in writing?
Yes, that's what I was 100%.
Okay. That's one thing. And then we had spoken earlier, that is in the meeting now 2 weeks ago, about some funding being put aside for a wetland rehabilitation study after the project is complete. Is that in your $3 million target?
What is the cost of that?
I don't know the cost of that, but I'm guessing, let's say $50,000.
Sure, it's in there. If you need it to be in there, we'll put it in there. We're not worried about the money. We're worried about the process and what we've been witnessing tonight, and we're scared that that's going to really affect our children. You know, we need you guys to come together for our kids today.
So, Matt, many of us are lawyers and bankers, doctors, and we do diligence, and we're elected to do that diligence.
Mm-hmm. But when you choose to do them at the buzzer, that's not cool.
And so
I'm calling you out on it because that's not cool.
You can call me out on it.
If you wanted this, I could have given it to you.
I received on Monday.
I sent a letter to all of you before the last meeting a month ago, or it was 2 months ago, 2 weeks ago. Sorry, this is not new.
I have asked for the diligence from the city. I'm told that there isn't any. I asked for it a while ago. I was told there isn't any. It was confirmed tonight. I would like us to do our diligence.
The diligence is right here.
Okay. So I don't know that most of us would do deals that way. I haven't seen an agreement or a term sheet.
Well,
and when I've been through this process the last 2 times, we had that. And in one case, it worked well.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you are all earnest and well-intentioned. It's not a doubt of that. But we have a duty to trust and verify. And part of that is to just do the basic diligence. And I would ask our staff to do that. That's all. Put it together. Share with us your confidence in where we are. I'm also hearing we're at 1.6, not at 3, and that this has a budget of 3.
Yep.
We've put up half the money and spent it so far. It's not unreasonable for us to ask to see the basic diligence behind doing a public-private partnership.
We can certainly sit down. What I'm saying is,
I welcome it.
But don't affect what's happening right here because of that. Because that, like I said, believe in what you're
here, except that I represent 16,000 residents of Rye.
Yep.
The taxpayers of Rye are counting on all of us to do our diligence.
Yep.
That's what we do. Your group is counting on you to come here and advocate and pull it all together.
I'm not doing it for my group. I'm doing it for the children, literally.
Yeah, but
couldn't care less about the group.
Okay.
I care about kids. Put them first. Please do the right thing. And whatever you need, we'll get to you.
And
done.
Can I make a suggestion?
Great.
Why don't you put it this way? Right? Let's take the risk away. You set the escrow, let the city see.
Do you guys have anything for me? I'm not answering from the audience.
That is an approach I was not going to use tonight as a time to get into the details. I think if we saw the diligence, we
need
could
a
determine whether there are many ways of doing it. There are pledges, there are binding pledges, there are escrows, there are guarantees, there's whatever. But you're asking us to spend a lot of money on a next step. We've already spent half that money.
But you're also asking them to put money forth for something that we are the only people who have the ability to approve or not. So
escrow is not spending.
But if I were you, I wouldn't give me money until I told you that I'm going to approve a plan.
Escrow isn't giving me money, and that's why
but they're taking money from people. Like the people who donated this money have pledged it, I presume, on the basis of a plan going through. We approve a plan, the money's going to be there. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, I've heard that, and I've seen it not happen in this very community.
Right.
And so
what I'm saying is believe in what you heard. If you didn't believe
in
in what you heard, that's your stance. I get it. The rest of you, please believe in what you heard.
Okay. Josh, make a motion? All right, I have a compromise suggestion. I'm just going to throw it out there. I would like to make a motion to direct staff and the RYREC Commission to provide comprehensive data, anything we're missing, to the council, including, say, analysis of current field use, projected use across the board. We don't want to leave anyone out here, right? Incorporating current and projected housing trends, because this is the piece of it. All options for fulfillment or lack thereof within city borders, and a plan for involving the entire council and public in workshop settings as needed. Deadline to be determined by the city manager by the next council meeting, with an interim report to be provided at the same time. Just a little more time for such an important step.
No more time.
I'm not afraid of boos.
I do think perhaps that maybe there's a tremendous amount of work that's been done, and maybe you just haven't found it. I'm happy to
I went
send
to all those meetings. I have a file very, very
Okay, but I don't know what you're asking for, because usage was provided.
It just landed on Sunday, that's all.
It didn't land on Sunday. This is 4 years, Lori. You've not been paying attention.
It was
4 years.
No. There was not consistent work done for 4 years on this. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying this started 4 years ago.
No, this started way before
amount
4 years
of work
ago.
had been done.
Way before.
And you ran for office. You knew this was an issue. As
I
a matter
did.
of fact,
I did, and there's quotes.
running opposed to this issue.
Right,
was
exactly.
one of
And
your
you were
platform
elected
issues.
in 2017. And what happened between
This
2008?
is delay tactic. I'm not
just
seconding
saying.
your motion if someone else wants to
We
go
can
for it.
play this game all night long. We have to do our due diligence.
Okay.
That's all.
You have a
I'm done.
resolution out there. Was there a second?
Okay.
Seeing none, I will make a motion
I-
to put forward. I'm going to make the motion right now to move the resolution in our packet. Whereas the installation of synthetic turf field at Nursery Field is considered a Type A action that requires the preparation of additional plans, studies, and forms to comply with the requirements of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, (SECRA). Now, therefore, be it resolved, the City Council hereby restates its role as lead agency and classifies the proposed action as a Type 1 action under SECRA. And be it further resolved that the City Council identifies a proposed action for purposes of environmental review as a synthetic turf field with a playing surface elevated above the 100-year FEMA flood elevation, including a robust subsurface drainage system. There you go, Paul. And an appropriate base fill and infill material other than crumb rubber that is sensitive to the health and safety of field users and that does not significantly adversely impact the environmental functions of adjacent wetlands. And be it further resolved that the City Council hereby authorize the expenditure of $150,000 from the General Capital Projects account to further advance the design of a turf field to 60% design and to retain the services of an environmental planning consultant to assist in the preparation of the necessary studies and reports, including the stormwater pollution prevention plan, to be all accomplished as soon as possible. Be it further resolved that the City Council hereby directs city staff and its consultants to prepare as soon as possible an environmental assessment form, which is EAF, a coastal assessment form, CAF, stormwater pollution prevention plan, SWPPP, hydrological studies, among other necessary relevant studies and information of the proposed action for City Council and review as required by SECRA. Be it further resolved, the City Council refers the proposed action once its application materials are completed to the Planning Commission for an advisory opinion on the impacts to the wetlands and also the proposed action's consistency with the local waterfront revitalization plan.
I'll second that motion.
Councilwoman Fontanes?
No.
Councilman Henderson?
No.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Nathan?
No, I've explained that I think we have some diligence to do.
Councilwoman Souza?
Yes.
Councilman Stacks?
Yes.
Mayor Kim?
Thank you.
I'd like to ask, let the kids play, to engage with the city manager in going through due diligence. And Greg? please share with the council. There are a few things that I've heard over and over again that I didn't have the opportunity to speak to as people were saying them, but I think most of them have been covered. Just, I think in particular on the health issue, we are specifying not only other than crumb rubber, but a choice of infills that guard the health of our young people. And in the array of infills that's been presented to us, there are several natural products ranging from coconut husk to wood chips. And I would just like to tell the group in advance, we'll be looking in that direction. There's been a lot of talk about PFAs, and we've been told repeatedly that we can now get synthetic turf that is not made with PFAs. And we have also been told that we can get every significant component of the field tested under California Prop 65 standards and found not to require a Prop 65 warning. And if you're familiar with California Prop 65, they have a list of about 900 things that they urge us not to mess with. But I suspect that most of us have many of these things in our homes and are living with them and are not aware of them. We will have a field that I think will be safer in that respect than many of our own living environments. That's it for me on health. I think everything else has been covered. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, the aunties who conducted themselves well, and the pros who conducted themselves well as well. And this is a continuing investigation. We have appropriated funds so that the work can be done to answer in not absolute final detail, but in sufficient detail for us to go forward. Many of the questions that we've been able to answer only superficially this evening. Again, thank you.
Democracy at work. Take a break.
Sure. We'll take a 10-minute break. Okay, members of the public may be heard on matters for council consideration. Jerry Seitz, you're up.
Good evening, Jerry Seitz, 141 Kirby. I'm here really to address the action you took with respect to your last meeting with the tree ordinance. I believe that was improper. It violated New York law. I think it's curable. The reason it violated New York law is twofold. One, home rule law. Second, open meetings law, because of the fact that taking the Alice in Wonderland position, that a word means anything I care to present it, essentially what you saw on the Rye record. That's just wrong. And then to go forward with the on that basis to adopt the law on that, again in violation of the existing law, is just crazy. But it can be cured very, very simply. And the way it gets cured is you revoke the law and simultaneously you go out and you notice the law as you in fact sought to pass it when you met last. You put that in your notice of meeting, and then you can just go forward and have an effective law. Why is this important? It's important because of the fact that any real estate developer who really wants to clear cut is going to go right forward because of the fact that you don't have a law in place. So you've created unnecessarily a situation which is easy to cure. The problem you as a group have, I believe, will be that there'll be a certain amount of ink on your face as a consequence of this. But I think for the purpose of taking care of the city and getting an effective law, it's worth it. I also think that somehow or other, in fairness to the Democratic Party, they were able to discover 6 people of the 17,000 people who live in Rye who believe that may and shall mean exactly the same thing, nominated them and got them elected. Hats off to the Democratic Party. I also think that we're in a situation where, if you took a look at the paper today, we're in a situation where this particular action by the City Council was of a piece, unfortunately, the way the Cohen administration has acted in the past, ignorant of or indifferent to the rules of law, and this is something that should not be encouraged. And, of course, the highlight of this, confirming this, was yesterday's action by the Gang of Four, who went forward and are suing the Board of Ethics, a group of people whom they elected or appointed to that position. And the cost of this to the city of Rye, I believe, is going to be staggering. I don't know. I assume that the Gang of Four is going to fund its own legal fees, but the Board of Ethics group, I'm sure, will insist upon being represented by counsel, and I think you're looking at $100,000 easy. And that is absolutely unconscionable. Frankly, I think you should resign.
Thank you for your comments, Jerry.
John O. Peters.
It pains me to be here tonight. I've supported the 4 council members who are 3 council members and mayor who have elected to sue our city. You're my friends. I've worked with you hard. I've worked with you on many, many things. And I think this is an absolute betrayal of your responsibilities as council members. The courts will decide. The fact pattern seems to be that 3 members of the council asked for private ruling from the ethics committee pertaining to the potential conflict of the appearance of a conflict of interest related to the tree meeting. That opinion was granted. In a better time, a mayor and council person or council group might have said, I take your point, I vow to do better. And that would have been the end of this. This is a tempest in the teapot. But here are the observations I can assure you with great certainty they're going to unfold in this city. Number 1, you're committed, and you will commit the city to spend a great deal of our wealth on this lawsuit. You're a majority, right? You could commit, you could vote for the city to cover your fees, the defense fees. So here we are in the ludicrous position of the city suing itself, paying both sides potentially, if it's not reimbursed by insurance, for both lawyers' fees. And this is the time when communities around us are searching for money to help with homelessness. We have an unbelievably large capital program we're trying to fund. We have roads with potholes in them that you have been doing a better job of filling. We have flood mitigation expenses. And so I think we will come to you on a monthly basis as you have your meetings and ask you how many miles of roads didn't get paved, or how much are we going to have to raise our taxes to cover this tempest in a teapot, ridiculous lawsuit. Now, here's what's going to happen. I'm certain. These 2 professionals, members of the ethics committee, are for the next month going to be basically responding to your lawsuit. depositions, facts, information. They and their deputies are going to spend full time on this. You shake your head, but dollars to donuts. Your productivity of your senior management of this city is going down the tubes. Probably morale as well. Who wants to work for a city who's suing itself? Secondly, what about the members of the ethics committee? The message you're sending to them. Okay, they are 3 of the most respected people in this community, the volunteers. They have track records of service for this community going back decades. And so what's the message you're sending to our form of government dependent on volunteer committees?
Thank you.
The very people you want to have volunteer for these committees are going to say, no way.
John,
Why would I
thank
want to
you.
get involved in this?
Thank you.
I'm going to stop right now, but I will say in conclusion, the conflict of interest that you 4 are putting yourself in, the morass of conflicts in running a city, suing people who basically are defending the city. The people who defend the city will work at your pleasure to an extent, right? So the conflicts you guys have are unbelievable. And so I think the honorable thing to do here is to withdraw the suit or to resign immediately and pursue the suit as vigorously as you want as private citizens. Thank you.
In light of those comments, with which obviously I'm in complete agreement, I would like to ask Mr. Cohn, Carolina, the other members of the Gang of 4, are you committed to fund this out of your own pocket, or are you looking to the city to fund any of the cost of or make any use of city personnel as part of your lawsuit?
We have no developed intention. We will not be using any city personnel.
Are you planning to to look to the city to reimburse your legal fees?
We may, and we may be legally entitled to that.
Do you honestly believe that there is anybody in the city of Rye who is prepared to think that this is fair, makes sense, or that you should continue as mayor on the basis of that?
Thank you,
Obviously, yes.
Thank you.
Please introduce me to him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one thing that I need to say. We are volunteers. The 4 of us who have brought this suit are volunteers who are blindsided by a Board of Ethics decision and a Board of Ethics that would not even speak to us. So I think we have a basis.
I think I wanted also to clarify the question that was asked of the Board of Ethics.
Sorry?
The question that was asked, whether they could vote no or abstain in a certain matter, in the matter of holding a public hearing for a moratorium.
This is all going to be adjudicated in a court of law.
Right, exactly, and that's why we want the court to please help us decide if anybody who was duly elected by Rye voters should farm out their vote and have someone else who was not elected direct them how they should vote. That is the crux of the question here, and I think all Rye voters have the right to know.
3 members of this council asked for private ruling.
Advice, not a ruling.
The ethics committee gave them a private ruling.
Advice, not a ruling.
That's the facts.
And it was supposed to be private, correct? It was supposed to be confidential.
And I will say one thing. Let's all remember, this has nothing to do with trees. This has to do with proper process of government.
Which
So
was followed, Jono. We appreciate
you
your
all
comments.
trying to
You're done now.
obfuscate this among the tree background.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not, Jono. All right, we're going to move along. Thank you. Consideration of public hearing.
Okay. Consideration to set a public hearing to amend Chapter 191, Article 3, Parking Regulations of the Code of the City of Rye by amending 191.21, parking standing or stopping, to prohibit parking standing or stopping from 100 feet north of Parsons Street to the entrance of Old Post Road on the west side of Boston Post Road.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We've done that. A resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a right-of-way and corridor agreement between the City of Rye and TC Systems, Inc. to grant permission for TC Systems to utilize public rights-of-way within the geographical boundaries of the city to construct, maintain, and operate fiber optic cable and related necessary equipment.
God bless you. I'm so sorry that that's what you're here for after all of this.
It's part of my trade.
Wow.
Please.
Take it away.
Good evening, Mayor Cohn, members of the City Council, staff. Maximilian Mahalik with the law firm of Cuddy & Vader on the behalf of the applicant TC Systems, Inc., which is a wholly owned subsidiary of AT&T. So I will refer to AT&T moving forward just for simplicity, but there is in the record a certificate of public convenience and necessity for AT&T via TC Systems, Inc. to provide telecommunication services to the residents of New York. So this is a pretty standard request to install aerial fiber optic cables to service a existing approved facility, an improved telecommunication facility at Rye Town Park. The City Council approved this site as a co-location site in 2021. So the purpose of providing fiber optic cable backhaul, this is really just to enhance efficiencies at the site. This increases connectivity for residents and for businesses, and also importantly, it enables enhanced 911 systems. So when you call 911, it'll say where you're calling from, which I understand was a request by Rye Town Park when this originally began, and we just want to ensure that that service is provided for the community. So just to articulate, this is not a tower, this is not an antenna, this is not a franchise, and this is not a small cell. This is just simply running optic cables along an existing Con Ed poles. There are already wires there, for example, I believe electric, telephone wires, and this is just adding an additional wire to service the site. The agreement prepared, there is a $10,000 fee for a 10-year term. What we expect here is to be very minimal cost for the city. TC Systems, Inc., they'll be repairing the, if there's any, for example, any repairs needed following work, which we wouldn't expect much to be in the way of, those repairs would be handled by TC Systems, Inc. TC Systems, AT&T, we will indemnify the city as a part of the agreement. There's also going to be insurance carried by the applicant here up to a $5 million umbrella policy. So in addition to all that, we've proposed the $10,000 fee just to assist with any additional costs, although we would not expect any significant costs from the maintenance of these wires on existing utility poles. Now, this request, just for the record, is being made under Section 27 of the New York Transportation Corporation Law and Section 253 of the Federal Telecommunications Act, which enables these types of right-of-way agreements to be entered into. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I understand that the draft agreement was prepared as part of the agenda packet. And then I would also just like to note, if taking any action, that the council possibly add on to any possible resolution, just a clarification that, for example, the city manager would be authorized to enter an agreement with final format of the agreement at the approval of the city, at the city attorney. And that's just, if a comma has to be moved or if anything has to be clarified, that can be achieved. And thank you.
Thank you.
These things look like regular telephone wires?
Yes.
So you won't be able to distinguish the difference between the two?
Correct.
This is not the heavy, say, bottle thickness fiber optic cable that's creeping through the entire city?
So I understand that, well, let me start with, in the letter that was submitted dated May 25th, there was an exhibit included that showed some of the stats for these. I can't say specifically what the exact thickness of this wire is, but I do have a picture of the existing telecommunication equipment along these utility poles that I could pass around, and I could say with confidence that the wires will match the thickness or less thereof of the existing infrastructure on those utility
Can
poles.
you make sure that that's written in here then? That, like, if there's nothing that...
Oh, it's all the same?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And that's just from the Rye Town Park looking down Dearborn.
So Julie, you want to ensure that the thickness is of
Well,
like...
just to the extent that, like, you were talking about these wires and not these things, right? Here, I'm sorry. Hold on for a second. See these, like, little transformer things? I don't know, whatever those are.
Understood, yes.
It's just these wires.
It'll be like the normal wires, and this is what's called a strand wire that will it provide structural support. It might be a little bigger than these, but I understand that it would be like
a Bosch transmission box.
So these wires are, none of these wires are the wires you're actually talking about. This is just wires that you're using as an example.
These are wires, so that's the existing utility poles, a segment. So those are just pictures of the site running down Dearborn.
So those are wires from, like, Con Ed or, like,
So you're saying it's
Verizon.
going to look kind of like this?
Correct. Yeah.
That's fine.
Will anything go away, or it'll just be another wire?
Nothing is being removed.
This is a new ad, right? Because AT&T is not on these poles to begin with, so I
Right.
think they're trying to get cell coverage down there.
Correct.
Or not, whatever it is. Coverage. Fiber optics, yeah.
Got it.
Fiber optics. Okay. All right.
Okay, so may I have a motion?
I'll make it.
Second.
Do we have to roll call this?
We're accepting, well, yes, please, a roll call.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Fontanes?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson? Yes. Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Souza?
Yes.
Councilman Stacks?
Yes.
Mayor Cohn?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying around.
Part of the train.
They won't be back soon.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
Resolution consenting to the reappointment of Mr. Bart DiNardo to the Emergency Medical Services Committee as the City of Rye Community Representative.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Authorization for city manager to enter into an intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County for providing a positive youth development program.
I love that. Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Can you do a roll call, please? on
Oh,
that?
because you're entering into an agreement. Sorry.
Money.
Can you just explain what this is? Sure. We received approximately $2,600 from the county. It is applied in our budget to the Rye Youth Council for their annual operating budget, and it's the same for all the communities that the county allocates money for every year for youth development.
Done yearly.
It's annual.
Yeah.
Is it for any kind of special program or?
Well, it's for a variety of programs that the Youth Council runs, but it's for their operating budget, so it's allocated by them. But their mission and their activities are in compliance with what the IMA requires from the county.
The Rye Youth Council determines?
Yes, it's the Rye Youth Council.
Okay, it's not we're getting paid to provide some kind of propaganda for Westchester County.
No, we're doing this. We are using the Rye Youth Council. Rye Youth Council is the surrogate for a program that we otherwise would be providing, but they provide on our behalf.
Great, thank you.
All right, so roll call, I guess?
Councilwoman Fontanes?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Souza?
Yes.
Councilman Stacks?
Yes.
Mayor Cohn?
Yes. Kristen, if you'd like to give us a resolution regarding that Article 78.
Yes, as we have previously discussed, the city is in a defendant in a pending matter with respect to the County of Westchester and Standard Amusements regarding the tax status of Playland Park. As part of that litigation, we have raised previously the argument that you have to pay first to litigate, and neither the county nor Standard Amusements have paid the taxes due on the Playland Park parcel to date, and so they have not paid the city or the county tax. And it is my recommendation to the council to make a motion to commence an Article 78 proceeding in the form of a mandamus against the County of Westchester and Standard Amusements, asking a judge to require payment of the unpaid taxes pending the litigation.
I'll make the motion.
And
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
just to that, did the county recently take some action that's relevant to our decision?
Yes, at the end of May, as is in due course every year, the county comes in and debits the city's account for 60% of the county's levy each year. And so they have taken approximately, what's the figure? $21 million.
10,000.
Well, no. The county, the total county tax they just took $22 million of their total amount that's due. They'll take another $13 million in August. So we are the tax collector, and they debit the account of the amount that's due. 60% now, 40% in August. They have taken the first 60%, which would include 60% of the Playland parcel.
Okay, so they've collected from us the tax that they refused to pay.
Correct.
Us.
Correct.
Okay, I just thought that was
I think that's
pertinent.
good. Yeah, I agree.
Good detail.
So thank you for edifying. So on that basis, I will make the motion.
Second. Councilwoman Fontanes?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Souza?
Yes.
Councilman Stacks?
Yes.
Mayor Cohn?
Yes. Consent agenda. A request from Sleep in Heavenly Peace, Beds Charity, a request by Christ Church. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Old business, new business?
Yes. I'd like to make the resolution to authorize the Board of Ethics to retain counsel. It's the same resolution that I stated before, essentially. Whereas the mayor and council members Johnson, Souza, and Stacks have brought suit against the Rye City Board of Ethics, whereas under the city charter and public officers law of New York State, the city has an obligation to indemnify and defend the Board of Ethics and officers of the city. Resolved that the Board of Ethics is hereby authorized to retain counsel of its choosing and to enter into a retainer agreement at an initial retainer amount not to exceed $100,000. That is the motion I'm bringing before the council.
I'll second that motion.
Roll call. Councilwoman Fontanes?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Yes.
Councilwoman Johnson?
No.
Councilman Nathan?
Yes.
Councilwoman Souza? No. Councilman Stacks?
No.
Mayor Cohn?
No. And
Can I just make sorry, go ahead.
As I said previously, we will turn to that, and if necessary, with a special meeting, but we will have information from the insurance company first.
So just a kind of a point of clarification. Under the city charter and under the public officers law, the city council did adopt Section 18. So we are the city, Greg and I are responsible to provide defense and indemnification, notwithstanding whether there's insurance coverage. So regardless of who is ultimately cutting the check or part of the check, my concern, and I understand I've recused myself, but my concern is that the return date is in July. Right now, the papers and the record would be due on July 14th. I don't know off the top of my head when your July meeting is, but my concern is the timing of everything.
As I said before, Kristen, and as I said to you privately, and as I said publicly, from our side of the litigation, will allow time so that the Board of Ethics has time to have counsel retained and to answer in good order.
Mr. Mayor, on behalf of the Board of Ethics, they've asked that us as the city officials to take immediate action to retain counsel. That will take some time. It will take some money. And so respectfully, under the city charter, we're required to do that as city officials.
Do we have to do it tonight, or can we have a special meeting to get a little bit more ducks in a row? Can we do that next week?
No.
So
it needs to be done immediately.
Where does it say that it has to be done today?
Well, it doesn't say it has to be done today. My point being is that we are obligated to defend and indemnify. I have an obligation, and together with Greg as the city manager, to ensure proper defense, that the boards are properly represented.
Agreed.
And I am concerned, and I appreciate you making that comment publicly about extending the time frame within which they will have to answer. But it's in a little bit of an awkward position. I don't know what the Board of Ethics, they're not here tonight. I do have knowledge that some of them are away a lengthy period of time this summer. So the timing of ensuring that they are properly represented, whoever that might be or whatever firm, I think time is of the essence. Mm-hmm. And under the charter and the public officers law, we are required to ensure that they are properly represented. So regardless of whether you actually make this motion tonight, it's our obligation to make sure they are properly represented.
I'm not sure I understand. That is, hiring of counsel is a city council task.
In this instance, when there's a Court of Appeals case on it, I looked at it today, where there is a town board. In that case, it was a town board versus the planning board. The Court of Appeals said the planning board, although there's not specific statutory authorization, they do have the ability to retain counsel, and it does bind, in that case, the town board to pay that expense. Now, in the normal course, it's preferred that we're on the same page and moving forward, but it is my position and tonight to let you know, at least notify you, the seven of you, as you're the fiscal officers, you control the purse of the city, but they are entitled to defense and indemnification. And given the time frame, I can't even negotiate an extended time period on their behalf. They don't have counsel, and it is my advice.
Why they have had counsel? Why do they not have counsel now? They're changing their counsel.
It's not appropriate, Josh, Mayor, for us to comment on litigation with you being the plaintiff. They need counsel.
So can they go out to bid?
We're not going to. It is time is of the essence.
Of course, it's appropriate, Greg.
It is none of plaintiff's business. It's how the defense puts on their defense. It's surreal. This is like a circus.
Can I just have a genuine question? What's the advantage of waiting for the insurance company? Is it going to change the amount?
It may change the lawyer.
It may change the lawyer.
So
I mean, the insurance company would require a specific lawyer?
You're going to control what lawyer the other side.
The insurance company
know.
chooses lawyers and pays them accordingly.
I don't think the insurance company chooses lawyers.
They don't.
Of course they do.
Have. We've lived
We've
that.
been through that.
So, look, let me just say this. Nobody's happy about this. Nobody. I'm not at all happy about any of this, okay? No one wants to be in this position. or in it. There is absolutely, we will be funding a lawyer for the Board of Ethics. I think $100,000 sounds like an egregious number. So I want to understand that better and get a better sense of what we think makes sense. There's no part of me that's not, if you're saying, will we, like, do they want to go get bids for lawyers or something? Or what, like, how does that work?
I don't think you can micromanage that.
No, it's none of our business.
All right, well, I'm not.
To simply authorize them to do it.
Yeah.
You're the plaintiffs. You can't tie their hands.
Yeah.
You can't control any of this. We spent $40K on a memo for a legal issue last year. We know what things cost. It's not a crazy amount of money for this to authorize them to do that.
No.
I'm sure they'll be prudent, but they're entitled to manage their defense as they see fit. None of us, you're right, none of us are happy.
Can I just add to
bizarre.
what Josh is saying? This is an extraordinary situation. I mean, so I really think that the fair thing to do here, these are all good people that can be trusted. I think it's up to them to decide who they want to retain. They've been sued. It's up to them to pick their counsel. I think the majority of this counsel is conflicted if you start getting into who you can retain and who you can't. I think that's very problematic. You can talk to your own lawyer. You all are, have filed this lawsuit, but you got to understand, I'm sure you do understand, this is a pretty extraordinary situation, and I just don't see how we can tell the Board of Ethics that they can't retain counsel of their choice to
Nobody's
defend
saying
themselves.
they can't retain counsel.
Well, we just said that the insurance company may dictate it.
Well, that's what I want to understand better. So I'm not.
Your business is
It actually isn't.
No,
it actually isn't.
Is what I would like to know what nobody. Of course, we're going to provide counsel. I would like to understand a little bit more.
I think this whole council is conflicted, and we're on opposite sides of this Board of Ethics decision. 3 of you decided that you would make public a confidential document, and
That's not true. That is not true at all.
It is true.
You're making stuff up again, Josh. Yeah. You're making it up.
It's also entirely irrelevant.
Christian, I'm sorry.
Absolutely not irrelevant. It is the most relevant point right here. We wouldn't be here had you not leaked that confidential advisory opinion.
What is relevant is that you have sued the Board of Ethics, and they are entitled under our charter and New York state law to defense and indemnity. And this council has to authorize them to do that. And the city manager and the city officers have to do it.
That opinion was handed to 3 people on this dais, labeled confidential advisory opinion. How did it end up everywhere?
This has nothing to do with it.
That is your doing. That is your doing.
With all
meeting for next week.
With all due respect to all of you, the Board of Ethics includes 2 city officers in addition to the Board of Ethics.
Yeah.
We are defendants as well.
Yeah.
And we are asking and demanding indemnification and coverage, and time is of the essence because of the limited amount of time and the other obligations that we have on behalf of the city, on behalf of your agendas.
Yes. Agreed.
Utterly surreal
Yes.
that we would in any
Also
way
agreed.
restrict them.
Nobody's.
Okay.
They
So where are
must
we?
move now.
We're
They
trying to-
must move now.
Try to do.
No, we must.
It is the
we
kind
must
thing to
not,
do,
not move now. When do you think you'll have an answer from the insurance
I
company?
can't, I don't know. I spoke, as I mentioned earlier, I spoke with our broker earlier today. And
It's irrelevant.
How can you possibly
Rule
Exactly.
the city and deciding the defense of the city? You 4 need to recuse yourselves from this discussion right now.
We don't
disagree.
We don't need people from the public. We'll deal with
This-
this internally.
We're not going to deal with it internally.
This
There's every.
this whole council
this is a public
conflicted,
discussion.
and that's
You're the
obvious.
plaintiffs. The defendants need counsel. You happen to be on the very body that has the ability to release the purse strings, that needs to be done immediately. They cannot be prejudiced by our failure to act. And so you made the motion, you've denied it. It's insane. Probably be another Article 78 or that. I mean, the city is just one Article 78 after another.
The point, all right? You admitted you leaked it.
When did I admit I leaked it?
The point is the reason I raised it is that under our charter obligations, we are obligated to do this. And along with Greg, as the officers in charge of ensuring that the public commission, the volunteer bodies and boards are properly represented, we are faced with a time frame which is tight. I appreciate that acknowledgement. I cannot, nor can Greg, negotiate an extension on behalf of the board. I don't feel that that's appropriate. I am saying at the very least in the interim, I'm going to make sure that the board is represented, and if and when there's insurance coverage, we will deal with how that's covered. Maybe different counsel comes in. I don't know.
Have they gotten a quote for $100,000? I mean, where's this number coming from? So I just don't understand why we're
I'm not even saying
$100,000 to something we have no sense. Like, why wouldn't they tell us? Okay, to the point, not restricting, but where'd your $100,000 come from? Is that based on fact, on research, on analysis? Because my question. No. No. As a fiduciary, I'm trying to figure out how do we make sure that the number that we're putting out there is a reasonable number. So
I'm not saying to put a number. I didn't put the number on there. I'm saying.
But can they come back and like go out and get counsel and then get a quote? Like, or get whatever it costs, and we approve that amount versus a made-up number?
It's not a made-up number. Litigation is expensive. We know from experience what it costs. It's a reasonable number so that they are not handcuffed and coming back every time they want to make a motion or do something with their counsel to ask for more money. I don't want to know what they're doing. I want them to do what they need to do. You need to do what you need to do. We need to stay out of it. And the seven of us need to do the best we can to govern and address the other matters before the city, of which there are plenty. And we should be focused on that and just get past this. So allocate the funds, and then we can end this discussion.
Yes. Robin, is there something you want to say?
Yeah, I would just like to speak on behalf of Greg and Kristen, two valued city employees who've done tremendous work for a long time. They've asked for you to make this decision for them to go ahead, and I don't see any reason that's going to make sense to anyone in this community that you don't go ahead and grant them that tonight. That's all.
Thanks, Robin.
I agree. What's the reason not to say yes?
Well, because $100,000 seems like a crazy number. And if they have a number like this is the council we select the lowest number we want, then we approve that number.
That's not how litigation works.
And if the insurance company picks it up, they're going to provide a lawyer and they're going to provide a pay scale. And it's going to be completely different from whatever is come up with on a short-term basis.
I don't think you can require them to take a lawyer that the insurance company wants. I think you have to let them pick their own lawyer.
Bill, we have been forced to take insurance company lawyer. The city has by the insurance company.
But that's our decision, not their decision.
You're going to.
You can't
why wouldn't you take the
dictate their
insurance
decision.
money?
It's not a decision. The insurance company.
lawsuit.
The insurance company decides.
We should stop this conversation.
All right, we're going to do this. Let's give it a minute to get a little research and get another meeting on the books to later this week.
In the meantime, on behalf of the city, on behalf of this board, Kristen and I are going to move ahead with engaging counsel for whatever period of time it takes until this body gets back together and makes whatever decisions you're going to make. But we have to provide, and we are going to provide that counsel immediately.
There is, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You have no choice.
Okay, what are you going to spend on that? How do you appropriate? I'm just trying to figure out,
it will cost what it costs.
What are you spending?
It will cost what it
Come back to
costs.
us and tell us what that
It's
looks
litigation. You won't know till it's over.
That's not true.
Yeah, it
You
is
get
true.
an estimate from a lawyer. That's absolutely not
We've been
true.
through litigation in this city. We've seen that the costs
And
go on until they're over.
And we always said limits. We always said limits.
Yeah, but we've never been involved in litigation where the city council is on the other side of the litigation.
This is
And it's for the members of the
It's
city
an
council.
unfortunate event that
It's
you
very
orchestrated. You were the architect of this whole thing.
What did I
So
orchestrate?
it is an unfortunate
I got
event.
ethics advice for myself because you all forced us to have a meeting that I knew was problematic.
You were
I went
asking
and
if
got-
you could vote no or abstain. You couldn't make your own mind. You couldn't speak out
No,
yourself.
I got ethics advice that I was entitled to get, and because you all wouldn't listen to me and wouldn't delay a meeting 2 weeks.
We will listen
so
to him.
we don't need to argue about all this
So
now.
not true.
But I mean,
It's
but
so
the
not
idea that this is just like any other litigation is just not true.
So once council is retained, if you haven't met
I'm not saying yes, and you may be deciding for yourselves, but I think four of us are not saying.
Fine.
Are not saying.
I will publicly state that once council is retained, we will certainly tell you who it is, what the rates are. When insurance carriers come back to us, when this body meets again, we can address it at that point as to how best to continue moving forward with the new information we have. But at least in the interim, whether it's 2 days, a week, or 2 weeks, in order to properly represent the Board of Ethics, I want to make sure that they have representation. If it's as simple as negotiating a new time frame of the papers.
Okay, so if that's the case, why don't we approve some reasonable amount?
I don't know. The board, you have a party here that's not represented. I mean, you have two members of the board, but they're not here. And that's the conundrum I'm in. I'm the city's corporation counsel. I have a board that I'm responsible to provide and make sure that they are properly defended and indemnified. And we have a time frame here that
And two city officials that are part of that.
so my job is to make sure that there's at least sufficient time that they can be properly represented. And I'm going to do that.
Kristen, there was another motion you had suggested.
In my email to the council?
Yes.
It was with respect to the commencement of
The retroactive.
I'm trying to find it.
Correct. So under state law, in order for a governmental body to have the capacity to sue, you need the legislative body to authorize the commencement of the suit. No different than we did a few minutes ago with respect to the Article 78 against the county and Standard. So in my email to the council yesterday, based on the way the lawsuit was commenced in your individual and official capacities, I suggested or recommended that you make that motion because that had not been done.
All right, so we need to do that.
So we'll make that motion.
Do we have a discussion?
Yes, we should.
So, what's the motion?
It would be to authorize an Article 78, or the four petitioners authorize an Article 78 against the Board of Ethics.
As a city council,
As city council members, yes.
and not in their individual capacity.
Right, you don't need to act for them on their individual capacities.
And so, first of all, isn't the statute of limitations already run for that?
The statute of limitations has run as we sit here today. The lawsuit, based on my look, the timing of it was timely commenced. Again, I don't represent. This is weird, but
I don't think we can even address this without other counsel. Kristen is a defendant.
Yeah,
this is improper to be asking her.
Who suggested it? What are you talking about?
It doesn't matter. I don't think that it is fair for us to put an officer of the city, and we have unrepresented people here. Let's get another lawyer in to advise on that.
This is what she's telling us to do. I'm reading the two things she's asking us to do. I'm taking them in order right now.
I'm just telling you, it makes absolutely no sense that we are asking our corporation counsel to tell us how to sue her.
Yes, right.
So we're
well said. He didn't tell her this.
the motion is to authorize
This is the process.
the city council to sue the city. Is that what the motion is?
It would be, yes, it would be authorizing, it's not the city council as a body that's suing. It is 4 council members and their, sorry, Mayor, 3 council members and the mayor in their official capacities suing.
And we would have to agree to this, is what you're asking for.
I'm telling, look at.
A majority would have to agree to this for it to go.
As the corporation council, in order to authorize the commencement of litigation, you have to have the capacity to sue. And my advice, my recommendation in order to ensure you have that capacity to sue is to take a vote and have that motion pass.
Can it be retroactive if the statute of limitations has run out?
I don't think we should be asking for legal advice from a defendant.
So we can talk all night about this.
Yes. This is,
We already know that 3 of us think this lawsuit is horrendous.
All of us think all of it's horrendous, though. All of us think all of it's horrendous. I wish you hadn't got us here.
I didn't get you there. You got yourself here.
It's all you're doing.
You got yourself here.
You're
But
the architect.
we don't need to
It's
argue
all
about.
you're doing.
I'm the architect.
Yes, you are.
it's on the scene.
I'm the architect. Okay.
Okay, we have.
All right. So why don't we just vote on the motion? We know how everyone's going to vote, so let's just vote.
I'll second
Get
the
out of
motion.
here.
Who made the motion?
Josh did.
I guess we're adjourned.
No, we just
adjourn.
well, we got to do that part.
You have a pending motion that's been seconded.
You have to vote on it now that it's been.
Yeah, so you have a motion that's live. So either you can vote it down.
I'm going to do a roll.
Are they
Roll
even
call,
able
please.
to? Don't they have to recuse themselves? Or
I
vote
don't
in their own
understand how
interest?
this can even happen.
How do they do that? How does that even happen?
Yours conflicted.
How am I conflicted?
We're not,
I'm not a part of it.
We are not. We
Come
didn't
on.
sue the city like you.
Sue the
We're
city.
not conflicted at all.
We are not.
Created this mess. It's disgusting.
I think that
Roll call.
we need to get other counsel to
You-
explain how this works,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's fair to put Kristen in this position. It's surreal.
Here we are. Please roll call.
The motion.
First thing she told us to do.
It would be, it's a motion to authorize the commencement of an Article 78 by the mayor, Councilwoman Souza, Councilwoman Johnson, Councilman Stacks against the Board of Ethics.
Okay, I'm going to do a roll call. Councilwoman Fontanes.
No.
Councilman Henderson.
No.
Councilwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Councilman Nathan.
No, and I think it's improper that the conflicted litigants are voting on this.
Yeah.
That's all ridiculous.
Councilwoman Souza.
Yes.
Councilman Stacks.
Yep.
Mayor Cohn.
Yes.
So this means the city pays for their.
No.
What does it mean?
They had, you know
I'll
what?
find out later. Can we make a motion to adjourn?
If there's no other old business,
I don't see how the
business.
city can govern this way.
Me either. It was never like this before you got here.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Done.
Aye.